jam-packed show. It's a jam-packed show. Jam-packed show. It's a jam-packed show.
All this jam packing though has made us gotten us to our goal of 1,000 now plus subscribers. Thank you everyone for. I was gonna make a Stephen Colbert like mission accomplished, pull down the ripcord sign here, but I just ran out of time. I was getting all the merch ready for the giveaway, but all the jam packing got us to 1,000 subs. So.
Yeah, it was the big long CFL filled episodes that got us there. So shout outs to the CFL for giving us a lot of news to talk about and filling our show and making us probably the premier XFL podcast right now. I'm gonna go ahead and say it and toot our own horn. I'll toot Reed's horn for that matter, and say, yeah, dude, like this has been great. Who would have thought we started this less than a year ago that we would already be at 1,000 subscribers? We're close to that mark of people that have watched the podcasts. And once we hit that number, then we start getting monetized, and that's always been the goal is to make this a fruitful venture in terms of
Yeah, somewhat. It's never going to be salary replacing, but it would be nice to get. We're putting a lot of work in, but no, I really appreciate you guys. Like everyone has just killed it the last 3-4 weeks here, jumping on. One of the comments this week was, "I cannot believe this channel only has 1,000 subscribers." So thank you very much for that. But no, thank you guys, everyone, so much. So here's the deal: we're going to get through all the news today, and then we've got all our giveaway stuff at the end. We're still trying, like Paul said, to get the view hours up. We're almost there. We're about a week or two away. So we're going to run down all the details about getting Chad Ochocinco signed football. I've got some old merch to give away. So just stick through the episode, and then we're going to give you all the details, but you have to watch. The only way you're going to be eligible for any of this stuff is the details at the end that we're going to provide you. So please stick around, enjoy the show. Tremendous show today. Paul and I think I'm still sweating from our duel yesterday with Arash. How do you feel that went?
He kind of, he got a little belligerent, a little bit dismissive. And, I had to bring out that arrogance that someone pointed out on a CFL board. I had to get a little arrogant with him and say, which league actually played some games last year? Was it the XFL or CFL? Oh, wait, it wasn't the CFL. And I hate being that guy, but Arash kind of brought it out of me. But it was a fruitful talk, and you'll get to hear that later on in the show. I hope you enjoy that as much as we enjoyed bantering with him.
I cannot oversell enough how great this talk is. Arash, normally we've been bringing 3 guests lately. I know that was getting a little overwhelming. I would say Arash feels like he is 3 guests worth of content that Arash brought. So thank you for that. We also have Spring League CEO Brian Woods coming up today to run down. They just announced all their stuff. Very excited to talk with Brian, ask him about our Jousters merchandise that we've been promised. I have the clip ready to play and potentially a censor bell from Paul if I get a little too feisty with that. But no, Arash is great. I just, whether you like Arash, whether you don't, whether you like us, whether you don't, I think there's plenty of stuff across the board. I cannot thank him enough. We already donated to, who did we donate to, Paul? University Bishops, right?
The Refugee Scholarship Program, a cause near and dear to Arash's heart. Basically, Arash and I had a bet over the Arizona-Stanford women's game. I will give him a little grief over that. Arizona was jobbed a little bit by the referees, but we'll talk about that. He said he's going to donate no matter what, no matter the outcome of the game, and I made the same pledge. And what I did was I doubled what we waged as my contribution to Bishop's U after Stanford had help from the referees to beat Arizona in the national championship game. But it's a great cause, and it's something near and dear to Arash's heart. We encourage everyone to sign to donate whatever you can. Log on to Bishop's U alumni page. We may be able to get a link down there. I don't know what Reed will do.
Yeah, I'll put it up.
When you do that, you have to click other, and then when you click other, you have to type in refugee sponsorship program, and then it will go to the right area because there's not a drop down selection for it. So click other, type refugee sponsorship program, and you'll be able to donate. We encourage everyone to donate. We appreciate the charity during this definitely unprecedented time.
Your lighting changed. You're a little flush now. You're a little red. Is that left over from Arash's?
So I have this new thing called a Stream Deck. It's not new. It's not new in terms of whatever. It's new to me. And basically, I can actually control my hue lights through this thing too. It's ridiculous how much stuff I can do with this. So I guess I gotta change out my lighting here. Ooh, that's a little bright. I look like one of the people on Cocoon there. Where's the?
This is riveting.
This is great stuff. This is why 1,000 of you subscribe to this podcast, right?
But anyway, so great convo with Arash, all your CFL stuff. A couple other things. We did the giveaway. I'm excited. The Jousters are live, are living again. Kenny, friend of the show, the Jousters, our spring league team is coming back. We're going to get into all that. Tremendous comments this week on the YouTube. People love Jim. Loved the education he brought. And also, there's like history lessons going on in our YouTube chat. Like people are like, hey, so what's the deal? Why does the CFL do this? And then other people are like literally giving a history lesson on our YouTube page. So I'm so thankful for all of our people. There was a question this week on the CFL Reddit board. Who is Mark? We are the Markcast. Who is Mark?
I don't know.
Oh, hi, Mark.
I don't know.
There's no. I am Reed. This is Paul. We are the Markcast because we are the XFL Marks. We are marking out for. It's an old wrestling term.
Apparently, I'm your sidekick, according to people on this. I mean, your graphics don't help that conversation get furthered. I like to think of us as a team. I know you put in more of the work, but apparently I'm your sidekick. So just call me
Paul
Robin.
And I are equal co-hosts, 50.0000% across the board, equal co-hosts in this venture. So there is no Mark. There's only Reed and Paul. We are the Markcast. Also, Braden pointed this out, and I forgot. You had said last week you wanted to play a CFL football game. Doug Flutie has a football game on the PlayStation that you can digitally download. I forgot that.
Which PlayStation?
Any of them. It's on all of them.
Really?
Yeah. So go for it. It's new. It just came out in like the last 9 months. I followed the whole thing and I was going to have them come on the show and then they never followed me back. So
is it all Canadian rules football and everything?
Yeah.
I'm going to have to check that out.
Yeah.
I want to check that. I want to play it.
Yeah. So that's a 100% serious thing. Braden point. I was like, God, I was like, I totally forgot that exists. Doug Flutie, whatever. Also, I just pulled out from the fridge. We got another 2 for the price of 1. I'm going back to the well today. I got Zoa. I've been drinking these all week. I love it.
Okay. So I figured out the way to drink it because it's the smell that bothers me. It's not necessarily the taste. And I should apologize to The Rock.
To Dwayne and Danny.
For disparaging such a product. It's the smell that throws it off for me. So if I drink it without breathing, like I close my nose completely, my taste buds it's like, okay, this is really actually good. But it's the smell that kind of makes me go, oh, that's what it is. It's not the taste, it's the smell.
I'm back. I should have had a Zoe yesterday. It was 9 a.m. when we talked to Arash. Maybe I would have, but I thought we were high energy. Anyway, so enough preface. Do you notice the jersey I'm wearing today?
It's the Roughnecks.
Well, it could be. So we've been doing CFL for the last couple of weeks. God darn it, there's XFL news, so we are starting with that today. Big news yesterday came out. For months now, the NFL has been had a lawsuit against the XFL for the Roughnecks logo, both their primary and secondary logo. And yesterday, the XFL for clothing. Not for digital assets yet, but for clothing, abandoned the trademarks. So that means that the Roughnecks logo on my PJ Walker, which relates to our second story, of the PJ Walker jersey, they're abandoning those logos. What is your reaction?
Vintage jersey there for Reed. Now it's a collector's item. This was going to happen no matter what. I didn't see this being a thing that the XFL was going to fight. To be honest with you, it's easier to change a logo than to spend tons of money to keep something that honestly. How many people are actually that attached to that logo? How many people? Not very many. So unfortunately, Arash now makes more of a point coming up in his talk that what does the XFL really have because they have one less logo now, apparently.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I wasn't shocked. I was still surprised that they would just abandon it. Really? Again, they're still going through with the digital assets and like games and toys and whatever, but at least for clothing and merchandise, it's done. Friend of the show, Josh Davis, and I both went on XFLshop.com as well as Vince from Alt Football Scouting Report. We got all of our Roughnecks merch coming, so I did buy a hat. So if you want your XFL Roughnecks merch,
get it now.
This is it. I mean, I would go. Yeah.
How bad has the city of Houston had it recently? They lose their logo for their XFL team. The Rockets stink. I mean, the Astros are doing good, but you have to blame the Astros for all of this karma that's coming down on the Houston Texans. We won't get into too many of the details, but all your news about your city has been bad news as of late, Houston. Yeah. I'm sorry to say it.
Deshaun Watson, all that stuff, just get more today. That's not a good situation. Anyway, so yeah, Roughnecks logo gone. The other note, and I did want to lead with this because this is important to me. The Panthers, this week it was announced that they traded for quarterback Sam Darnold from the New York Jets. The Jets hold the second pick in the draft coming up here in 3 weeks. It's presumed that they're going to take Zach Wilson, number 2. That's kind of been the, Lawrence and then Wilson. At least according to like Good Morning Football and stuff. The problem with this is MVP of last year of the XFL, PJ Walker, plays for the Carolina Panthers as a backup along with Will Grier. He played one game this last year and was responsible for, I believe, a quarter of the wins that the Panthers had. So I don't feel like this is a good situation for PJ with Darnold being brought in just for a myriad of reasons. What do you think?
So I have a lot of friends that are New York Jets fans, and the New York Jets offensive line is trash, but the Panthers offensive line is exponentially better. So now this is a chance, for Sam Darnold to put up or shut up. If Sam Darnold can be productive in Carolina, then we know what the problems were. It wasn't Sam, it was the Jets offensive line. This is becoming a logjam though still. I mean, what do they got now? They got Sam, they've got Teddy, they've got PJ, they've got Will Grier. Don't they have somebody else too?
They have, they had like a fourth guy that they had brought in. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Panthers have to offload Teddy. I mean, and it's unfortunate for a guy like PJ who definitely has the heart and the ability to get things done. I think PJ would be a great backup. I really do. And if that's the way they're going, then that's great. But it's like you want PJ to get a chance, and he's not going to get a chance being behind both Sam Darnold and Teddy Bridgewater now. So we'll see what happens. If they can offload Teddy, I see PJ possibly sticking around. It just depends on if they're able to offload Teddy.
Also, I'm going to look at my audio recording here for a second. I'm going to ask you one more question, ask you Vamp, so we don't have to edit. What do you think about? I think PJ Walker fit more into a Teddy Bridgewater style offense a little bit more than Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold is a little more stagnant.
Pocket passer, yeah. He's definitely that.
What do you think about that? And I will be right back.
I think that it's going to be interesting to see if Matt Rule changes his whole offensive scheme to fit a Sam Darnold type quarterback, or potentially tries to make Sam Darnold a runner, a scrambler, who can throw on the run. I don't know too much about Sam's ability to throw on the run, so I'm curious as to how this is going to play out. If they're going to try to shove Sam Darnold into the play schemes that Teddy Bridgewater would do and PJ Walker would do, or if they're going to adjust their offense completely to fit Sam Darnold. It's going to be definitely an interesting puzzle to figure out in Carolina, and we're hoping for the best for everybody involved, especially PJ, because we're big fans of PJ. We'd love to have him on the show and chatting about his time there. And as you can tell right now, I'm probably stretching quite a bit because Reed was gone checking his audio settings for a while. So I just kept rambling.
We're going to have you send me the audio file after this recording. I think my car got full. And we didn't do a format beforehand.
Oh,
yeah. So anyway, so I don't feel great for PJ. I am a little worried about that. And so I think, Darnold's going to come in. I don't know. I think he couldn't do worse than with the Jets, but we'll see. We'll see what happens with that. So anyway, those were kind of my two XFL notes off the top. Was just the worry about PJ, and then obviously the logo stuff. Moving into the CFL news, I had a comment this week. You guys have been talking about the same stuff for 4 weeks. I do think there's more insights to have. Dave Naylor had a tweet come out today. I was in the discussion yesterday. It came out. And Dave Naylor, who I believe is the closest person on the face of the earth to the situation right now that can talk about what's going on, tweeted, "My opinion is there is a better chance that this gets done than it does not, but I have no knowledge of this being a done deal and couldn't accurately handicap the chances of it getting there." My thoughts with this are, sometimes with reporters, Mike Mitchell, I know, does this sometimes. Sometimes they know things and they can't say things. So like when Mike Mitchell comes out and goes, there could potentially, I would get your mind wrapped around there not being an XFL season in 2022, just saying, it kind of means there's probably not going to be an XFL season. I mean, Mike can't come out and say it, right? And he doesn't want to divulge, break trust and all that stuff, but that's kind of the thought. And so I believe the similar is here, where when Dave Naylor comes out and goes, I think there's a better chance of it happening than not. We told Arash this yesterday. I mean, I think that means that the merge is happening at some point.
I completely agree. And to that point, there's been, and I hate to stray away from, I just want to give an example real quick. Sean Miller was fired as Arizona head coach yesterday, Wednesday, I should say. And people have been naming their people who are going to be on that list of potential fill-ins. And of course, they're talking about bringing another Wildcat in like they did with the women's team. And now look what the women's team is doing. Somebody on that list is Miles Simon. I happen to have some info that I've never divulged that has been trusted to me that tells me Miles Simon will never, ever step foot as a coach in Tucson ever. And that's stuff that's been told to me. And given that where it came from, I completely believe it. So there's sometimes when reporters know some things and they don't specifically drop them until right before they're going to be dropped normally. So, and that's the thing. Like, we protect our sources very well. We're both practicing journalists.
Well, yeah, and we're going to get into that more too later. But that's the thing, like Rob Peterson, friend of the show, when he comes out and he's like, "Hey, I hear stuff." Well, what are your sources? Yeah, you can't just break trust with all that stuff. But I do think if Dave Naylor is coming out and saying that, I would start getting my mind around that fact, and that is I don't know, like I said, even what that looks like, or if I'm ready for that, and certainly not CFL fans that have been fans of, friends of the league for, years and years and years. Right. But I don't know what that looks like, but I would at least start getting used to the fact that is potentially happening.
I think like I said, I think like where there's smoke, there's fire, and the talks, it's just my opinion, my speculation. The talks are much further along than what we've been publicly told.
Yeah, and we're going to get into this too with this Randy. So Randy Ambrosie, CFL official, released a little video with Commissioner Randy Ambrosie. It's basically just a rehash of a lot of the stuff they've already said, but there's one clip here I marked for Paul that we're going to play just a few seconds, and I want to talk about that.
Which was, look, we just wanted to be transparent. We've got great fans and we have a great group of players, and we thought, before we get too far along, we'll just let the world know that we're talking. We don't know what the outcome of all of this will be, but we are excited to be in this conversation. I think
yeah. And what I don't like about that is I don't feel like they're being transparent at all. I feel like when they came out 3 weeks ago and they said, "Hey, we're talking," I don't think it's like reported fact, but I think it's widely assumed that these conversations have been going back to at least October at the earliest. And so I don't like that when the commissioner comes out and goes, "Well, hey, we just want to be transparent. We're just saying," it's like, no, you're not, because, and I don't think that and the interview continues and he goes, "Well, they like football too, and they have a global vision and we have a global vision." I don't buy any of that. I buy, like Arash is going to talk about in the episode, I do buy that the CFL is looking for that Hail Mary, and for right or wrong, and this is what they're viewing, right? And I think that the potential is way better than Arash and a lot of CFL fans fear, right? Like, they're fearing this, okay, the XFL is going to come in, but I do think that they are looking for the Hail Mary, and I think this is it. So I don't like any of that. What do you think?
Well, I mean, Arash talked about the Hail Mary, and we'll get to that in a second. It's just like you have to like sometimes try different things and see what works and see what sticks. And he'll go down and list everything they thought was the savior of the CFL to begin with. But it's almost like wrestling in a way, where like they have to try out different gimmicks and see what works and see what happens and try out different characters. That's what's happening here. Is like, okay, that didn't work. Let's try something else. That didn't work. Let's try something else. So now it appears that they're trying something else with the XFL, and it's my opinion that expanding the goal of the CFL that Randy Ambrosie has said, that we've read up on, is to expand beyond the Canadian borders. And I feel, and I'm going to stick to this, I feel like Americans will fall in love with their sport. They will appreciate it. I think they will. I've grown to like it a lot. I've watched clips. I watch at least 5 or 6, they do like 40-minute games on YouTube. I watch 5 or 6 of those every week. I don't want to maybe not 6, but between 4 and 5, I watch, of those things when I'm not doing anything. I'm just trying to catch up on the product and try to get the history and try to be more knowledgeable about it. I think the Americans will like the game. I really do. I think it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. And I guess my thing, and we get into this a little later, just because things haven't worked in the past, and I get that. I get the fear of the foreign money and the business person. And, Arash says, they're going to come in, and people get tired of spending money. Then what happens? What happens when they come in, they dismantle everything we have, they get bored in 5 years and move on. And I absolutely get that. But in my heart of hearts, I think that and I will for sure admit, if in 5 years, God willing, we're still doing this stupid podcast. But I will definitely say, man, they totally screwed the pooch. They shouldn't have done this. But I believe in my heart of hearts, there are strong, smart, talented people there. Not just Danny and The Rock, other people involved that are going to see this thing through, or they wouldn't be doing all the work that they're doing.
I completely agree. And, you have a guy like The Rock who played in the CFL. He understands the heritage and the lineage of it. He's not going to just dismantle it just to dismantle it. It's not like a payback thing for him. That's not what this is at all. And if anything, he would probably brand it the CFL before he changed the name to the XFL. That would be dumb. And I don't think he's going to do that. He's got smart people around him. Yeah. He himself is smart. So.
He himself is smart. So I've been now the proverbial Rock defender. What does The Rock even accomplish? Well, I don't need to. Yeah, Rock has accomplished a lot more than I have. Maybe The Rock could defend me a little bit. Would you be amazed? I don't know if you've looked at our YouTube stats and listens lately. Would you be amazed that Canadian football social media presence has spiked over the last 3 weeks with the XFL talks?
I'm not amazed at all. Because you got a big, all these markets south of the Canadian border. I don't know how big Toronto is. I think Toronto's I think the population is equal to LA, if not bigger. I could be completely mistaken, but you have a few big cities here and there, and then you have spread out, 50,000.
2.93 million people in Toronto.
What?
2.93.
Oh, so not LA size, but still big.
It's a big city.
Still considerable. So you have way more populous cities and way more people in the US than you do in Canada. It's true. So that's probably a big reason why you're seeing a lot of social media spiking, is because Americans are going, okay, what's this? And people that don't know about the CFL are going, what is this? And they, like me, hopefully they watch it and go, oh, this is really fun. I like this.
Yeah, I will say it was humbling a little bit. I will give Arash a little when he asked us, okay, as the XFL media, what do you cover? And it did sting a little bit as someone that spent the last 2 years of my life very invested in this, league, to be asked that. But I'm just saying that, yes, that clearly CFL, wasn't hot in the market either when all this happened. Yeah. That's what I've always said. Both of these things need each other, right? Because it's not like CFL is the prettiest girl at the dance either. So it's kind of you're kind of average looking, and you meet someone that's kind of average looking, and you go, we're in this together, right? We got to go. It said 2.8 million impressions, 150,000 engagements, an increase year over year of 100,000.
Just 1,000%, just not 100,000.
1,000. Sorry, the Zoa's hitting me. Anyway, so it just goes to The Rock and all this stuff and everything else. But CFL needs help with social media stuff, so maybe they could hire Braden when all this is done, and he could run their Twitter for them.
Shout out if they get Braden on there as their social media advisor. That would be the smartest thing they could do. Yeah, so yeah,
there you go.
Naylor says also that there isn't one upper level CFL person he's talked to that isn't open for a merger.
Yep.
Huh. So yeah. Am I reading that right?
Yeah, you're reading that right.
Do I need Zoa to kind of decipher what's going on here?
I wrote that. That is a written statement, but that is the gist of it. Is that, Naylor has come out and said there is not one upper level person in the leagues at all that he's talked to that is not either open or for this. That basically he has not encountered any opposition at all with upper level CFL people right now.
What defines an upper level person? Are we defining someone in the administrative offices, or are we defining owners?
Both, anyone upper level.
Huh. Because the XFL, all the teams are run by one person.
Yeah.
Oh, not one person, but one entity.
Yeah.
DFL is a little different. So that's a question that needs to be worked out.
Yeah, and I'm not saying Naylor's talked to every person in the league, but I'm saying the point of this is, to not get into semantics, but it's like there's overwhelming positivity for this potential merger from all the different, higher up levels that are going on. And the article says, make no mistake, there's going to be plenty of risk associated and leaps of faith. But if a collaboration holds to keep the 9 teams committed, it's going to be less likely than steering forward with the status quo. Because that was the other thing that I might have combined this with the previous story that Naylor was also saying how the most dangerous thing right now is to not do anything. Right. To just, and that's what we ask Arash. It's like, if they need money and they tried to get the government money last year and they didn't, at some point you need money to play this year. And I do think that they're hedging a little bit with announcing all the different starts of camps and all these kind of things because they don't necessarily know that they're going to have the money to do that. So.
Very true. Very true. We'll see what's happening. The players are reacting to the pay cut. Here's a clip from TSN. And it's who is it? Dave Naylor? Dave Naylor.
Yeah.
Well, we've seen a number of high-profile players since that 20% rollback hit the news. Delvin Breaux with Hamilton, Bryant Mitchell with Win. Well, we've seen a number of high-profile players since that 20% rollback hit the news. Delvin Breaux with Hamilton, Bryant Mitchell with Winnipeg, Adrian Tracy, of course, who had signed with Montreal last offseason. But, from the most part, these players are it wasn't the 20% that pushed it over the edge for them. I think these were players that had looked at retirement. The overall situation, I think the relationship that the players have had with the owners through this may have played into it. But I don't think it was just the 20% that said, okay, I'm out on this. And, when you talk to people in the league, agents and such, you get the sense that there may be a lot of unannounced retirements thus far. One agent told me he thought 10% of his guys, were sitting on the fence and we're just going to wait and see when the season started and what the actual proposals were going to be to return to play for them.
There you go. So, I mean, that's pretty staggering numbers, right?
10% retirements? Because, I mean, you'd have to fix the ratio.
Well, we'll get into that too. I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on right now with this, and we're going to talk about the Canadian numbers here coming up with the ratio. I mean, big, life altering changes are currently in the works right now, and I think that is not a good number. I mean, I know that's just one agent, but the fact that you have a major sports agent saying 1 out of 10 of his guys is not going to be playing in the league, they're just sitting by. I think that's scary, and especially when they've already announced a 20% proposal, that hasn't been agreed to, but they've announced that, and now you got players that aren't going to be playing. You got the draft coming up. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's got to be worked out here, even if the XFL isn't involved.
And the 20% pay cut is if fans aren't in the stands.
Yeah.
If fans are in the stands, the pay cut probably would have been like 10% or something.
There's a formula that it'll scale down, but spoiler, Ontario, shutdowns are happening right now. People are lined up at Costco. Like I said, I was tagged in stuff yesterday. I go, this looks like Seattle last year when we had lines out the door at Costco with people getting toilet paper. It's tremendously terrifying that we are a year now from this. And
almost a year and a half. Almost a year and a half. Because it came out in 2019.
Yeah.
By June, this will be a year and a half, and that's 2 months away.
Yeah.
And my friend is in Toronto. Her name's Juliet, and she's like, great, another lockdown. And then she asked if there are any Americans that would be willing to give her papers. That was funny. But yeah, it's like we need to help expedite getting Canadians vaccinated, basically. The fact that I'm a week away from my second shot, and there are 60-year-old people that aren't quite getting their first shot in Canada is a travesty. We need to help out. We need to get Canada back on track here, and that might be American arrogance, but it is what it is.
Yeah, this came out from 3 Down Nation. Just to plug, John and Hodge and Dunk it's Justin Hodge and John Dunk, please forgive me, but the guys at 3 Down Nation did a tremendous interview this week with Mark and Newsub with Mike Mitchell, our parent site, breaking all this stuff down. One of them's a former player. They've been covering the league for 10 years, all this kind of stuff, tremendous insights into, the CFL and things like that. They had an article come out this week basically saying that young Canadian fans don't really care about 4-down football. They care about the NFL. And so the fear is that, XFL brings in 4 downs. Like, that's not what the Canadians crave. They're just craving like the bright lights of like Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson.
I think that you need, I don't even think it's a situation where it's like they're craving the NFL and the bright lights. I think they're into better marketing, and the CFL doesn't have the marketing to grow the game with a millennial fan base. That's the bigger problem here. It's not necessarily the Patrick Mahomes and the Lamar Jacksons, the Russell Wilsons. That's not the problem. The problem is you're not marketing it to grow it to the millennial audience.
Yeah, you got to get some of those younger viewers. And, like we said, where's the CFL streaming service? Where's the digital content? Where is the on-demand, where I can watch the games wherever? I mean, it's an
app. I should have an app.
Yeah, they should have an app. This is an interesting story that came out. We talk about the CFL and they're really like pinching their pennies. Scott I can never say names. Milanovic. And I know a similar thing happened to Mark Trestman too. He was a coach up there. Scott made $500,000 without a CFL season in 2020 because of the way that like the contracts and stuff work. That basically he got paid to sit out. And I know when Trestman came down to coach the Vipers in Tampa Bay, he also was still getting paid off his CFL contract. And in the NFL, $250,000 obviously is nothing to sneeze at either. But in the CFL, when like the entire TV budget's like $48 million, the fact that you had $500,000 sitting with a coach that didn't play or they didn't coach, it was pretty astounding.
Who paid that?
The league. He was with Edmonton. He was hired by the Edmonton team in 2019 after a 3-year stint with the Jaguars. In January, he left to go be the quarterback's coach with the Colts. During the cancellation season, the 48-year-old never coached a game, but according to Adams, who's the story's from, the former bench boss earned $500,000 for 13 months' work.
So did the league pay that, or did the owner of the Edmonton team pay that?
I would assume the team paid that.
I mean, this can go one of two ways. I think an owner of a football team is free to spend their money as they see fit, but the players should also be taken care of as well. There's two sides to this coin for me.
This I will not be able to pronounce this name either. This came out this week.
Shiner?
Yeah, Alex Shiner. He is with Redbird. Lovely friend of the show, listener of the show, Max. Basically like my Twitter researcher at this point. If I have questions, he'll do it. It was really interesting. So he did a podcast back in February with Are You Not Entertained podcast, talking about like Redbird and the XFL and the acquisition and all that stuff. Max tweeted this article out to CFL News this week, and it went everywhere like it was new news. And you know what I hate about old news that gets tweeted that's not new news?
It's clickbaity.
Well, it's not clickbait. It's. I mean, people are just craving stuff right now. The big takeaway from this was he was just basically saying like, there's more than enough people that watch football. You can't argue that a lot of people watch XFL more than other sports. I think there's more demand for sports. It's a good thing. It's good news, clickbaity stuff. Okay, we got Redbird. We can tweet this, but this went everywhere. This was in all the Facebook groups. This was all over Twitter, and I'm like, if we don't, this was from February. This was from I get that he's with Redbird, but it does kill me. And I know Max is just trying to, it's like little finger, like sowing chaos. Chaos is a ladder, but
dissension.
Yeah, it did go everywhere this week, and this is not new with Alec on the Are You Not Entertained podcast. But he did have good things to say about the XFL.
I mean, I think the reason why a lot of people watched the XFL on TV was because you had a limited amount of franchises. So you had curiosity from cities that weren't able to attend XFL games in person to see what this was really like, and that's why I think that the ratings showed that. Yeah, no doubt that there was 1.3 million. It's nothing to sneeze at for a midday Saturday game. All right, so Rod Peterson, friend of the show, decided to drop some kind of that's the wrong one. Good job, Paul.
This was big. So this was big news came out, and I wish we would have talked to. I will say in retrospect, I wish we would have talked with Arash a little bit more about this. The news coming out, the MSLE that they own like the Raptors and all the people in Toronto. that it's almost like that they are wagging the dog between the XFL and the CFL. That they're trying to figure out a way to like better position the teams that they own within the CFL. It's kind of the vibe that I get. And they talked about this on the 3 Down Nation XFL News Hub interview as well, that basically they own the other Toronto teams, like the Raptors and the Maple Leafs, right? And then they own the Argos. And they haven't done anything with the Argos at all. And so they're trying to figure out like, well, if we can bolster the CFL, like they almost own the Argos as like a write-off right now. Like, well, we have all these other teams and then this team is losing money. And it's almost like a tax thing. Like it's a really fascinating dynamic there. But anyway, Rod kind of broke news with this on Wednesday, with MSLE being potentially behind the merger talks.
Yeah, I went off the air yesterday saying that I just got a message from a CFL insider saying that he's going to give me all the deets on the CFL-XFL talks. And so he just dropped a little bit, but he said, I'll know more in a couple of days. What you need to know is that what's behind this is MLSE. And he said, listen, don't quote me too much on this until I have more details. But he said, with everybody going nuts at Ambrosie, everybody going nuts at The Rock, he goes, if anybody is mad or if you want to know who's behind it, it's MLSE, which is basically what David Naylor's been dropping on Twitter and on the podcast interviews and everything that he's done. MLSE, for whatever reason, is wagging the dog of the CFL-XFL collaboration / merger. So we've just diverted the quick six to jump into that because that wasn't in my quick six and probably should have been. Is that necessarily groundbreaking news that MLSE is behind this?
You know, and they said it's not groundbreaking, like crazy thought that would be a thing, but it is interesting. Just tons of dynamics going on up there between all the TV networks and the owners and all this kind of stuff. What do you think about that?
I'm trying to digest, and I think, look, the Toronto Argonauts, from what I remember in my youth, that's where Rocket Ishmael went to go play. He didn't go to the NFL. He went to the Toronto Argonauts. And there's some kind of there's history and there's knowledge of that franchise. I think Ricky Williams actually went to go play for the Argonauts too. And didn't Johnny Manziel go play for the Argonauts? I want to say, I know he started with the Argonauts and went to Montreal afterward, if I'm not mistaken. Could be completely wrong.
According to Wikipedia, Johnny Manziel is
Hamilton.
Is the quarterback for the FCS Zappers out of the Amateur Football League.
Oh, that thing that never delivers jerseys. That
he played for the Tiger Cats, Hamilton.
He played for the Tiger Cats, then went to Montreal Alouettes. Anyway, Ricky Williams with the Argonauts. I do know that. The Argonauts are a well-known brand. They're not necessarily. I don't know their history in terms of getting it done in the Grey Cup or getting it done on the field, but they're a known brand, and I think that's the power of MLSE. And I think MLSE might try to position the Argonauts as like on that Yankees level, like the franchise of the league. Maybe that's their play. I don't know.
Well, so alongside this, another article came out this week from 3 Down Nation. They're like they're like the XFL News Hub up there of Canadian leagues, or of Canadian news. They were saying, forget The Rock, that Drake could potentially be. But they say, so it's in the light that Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, owner of the Argos, are one of the main forces pushing because they're discontent with them losing money. It's a bit ironic considering that the MLSE has really yet to sink any significant marketing dollars into the oldest pro sports franchise in North America. And basically they're trying to say, like, what if you didn't have The Rock? What if you had someone like Drake endorsing and doing that stuff? Do you think Drake has as big of a pull as The Rock?
No.
Even in Canadian land?
In Canadian land?
Yeah.
No. I'm sorry. I don't think so. I think Drake, there's just so much more to The Rock than the actor. There's the businessman. There's a lot more to The Rock than just the actor. And all I see from Drake in terms of his involvement in Toronto sports teams is being the Jack Nicholson of the Raptors, sitting on the sideline, being belligerent, and being like I would be at a wrestling event or a sporting event that I cared about. He's that guy. I have yet to see him at a Toronto FC game. I have yet to see him at a Maple Leafs game. But at a Raptors game, he's chilling, and that's their marketable face for the Raptors, and that's it. Like Jimmy from Degrassi is only going to the basketball games. That's it. He's not going to the hockey. He's not. I don't know. I don't see it how he could.
Well, I do. I think too, and not that Drake isn't successful in his own right, but I think that The Rock and Danny have proven with the movies, with the TV shows, with the tequila, with the energy drinks, with the everything that and I get that Arash says, what if they run a sports league? I absolutely understand that. But if we're looking at celebrity jump the shark castings, whatever, between Drake and The Rock, I think The Rock has more business acumen and the team behind him by a mile at this point than Drake does.
The Rock has a diverse business knowledge. I don't, and maybe this might be my ignorance about what Drake is involved in outside of music. I know he shows up in a movie or a TV show every once in a while, but I don't know how broad his business acumen is as compared to The Rock. So I think comparing the two and saying, "Oh, we could just get Drake," could you? What could he do?
It's a good question. Do you want to hit this last one and then we'll go to Arash, and then there's a couple scattered things after that. Former CFL Commissioner Larry Smith, he's a senator now up there. I actually emailed his office to try to get him to, try to set up an interview with Larry Smith. He's basically saying you have to play this year. People are going to forget sponsors. We've been talking about that for a long time, and that is the fear. I mean, we're talking pay cuts, CFL people sitting out, lockdown, we don't have vaccines, all this kind of stuff. I mean, if the CFL doesn't get off the ground this year, I don't know what's going to happen.
It's done.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, that's why, I mean, and we're talking and people are like, well, we don't like XFL. We don't, I'm like, you got to figure out something here. I don't know what the plan is if they don't get, Arash said they're going to the government trying to get money. I mean, that didn't work last year. So I don't know what's changing about that this year that wasn't there last year.
I think there's just a lot of hope. There's a lot of hope that they can save it without going outside.
Yeah,
that's my thought. So that being said, you want to bring in Arash right now?
Yeah, I think so. We'll take a break, and then I got a couple more scattered, a little more XFL stories after this, and then obviously all our spring league and all that other stuff.
Cool, Arash, right after the break.
Be ready.
We're ready.
Bring your popcorn, bring your sody pop, bring your Zoa. This is going to be a good one.
There you go.
How's it going?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Good. We appreciate you putting up with the shenanigans and coming on. So,
well, anything to talk about your twice failed league.
Oh, get out of here, man.
So I wanted to set the stage today. This is what I woke up to today. I woke up to more comments basically saying, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming on. Basically saying...
That's up for debate. I'm kidding.
But saying, I don't feel comfortable handing over the keys to our 108-year league to The Rock. And I go, two things. It's not a 108-year league. It's a merged rugby league back in the 50s. And you're not handing the keys over to The Rock. So
you're handing the league over to nobody because there's no such league. What's the league?
Well, but it's the
What's
ownership
the XFL?
behind it. It's the ownership behind it. If you got rid, so if they didn't have the XFL, if they started and just called it the RFL, the Rock Football League, would you have a problem with it?
Yes. Because every league has failed. Every single football league has failed. Are we rolling? Are we on, or are we just talking?
We're good.
We're going.
If you would like to go.
Right.
Yeah, we're good.
You want to reset? We could reset and go.
No, this is fine. Yeah. So let me paint a scenario for you. We're going to start a football league. We are going to have it televised by CBS and then NBC and then ABC. And then ESPN's going to buy a stake in this football league. And they're going to televise it. That sounds like it's, after a couple of networks have had it. And then NFL Network's going to jump on and they're going to start televising some of this stuff. And then Ted Leonsis, the owner of the Washington Capitals and Washington Wizards, is going to jump in and get ownership. And we're going to have a franchise in Washington, D.C. This is can't miss, right, for pro football? Welcome to the Arena Football League that doesn't exist anymore, that went into bankruptcy. Guys, pro football leagues do not work. There have only been 2 that have worked. The NFL, which is a behemoth, forget it. Don't even compare anything with the NFL. You can't. And the CFL. And every other league, be it the Alliance of American Football, be it the World League of American Football, be it Arena Football 2, be it Arena Football, be it the XFL twice, they have all failed. And there's a reason for that. It's not just that the CFL's business model doesn't work. It just doesn't work. People do not have interest in anything outside of major college football and the NFL in the United States. And in Canada, people like the NFL and people like the Canadian Football League. And that's it. There has been nothing has shown us, and history as a way of repeating itself, i.e. pandemic at the moment, history as a way of repeating itself. And nothing we have seen in history, from the USFL that had real stars to even leagues that have had major money backing it. Vince has more money than The Rock. To networks supporting it, to networks investing in it, it has not succeeded.
So you just say, that's it, CFL's running?
No. So my question is, when you have the only other league that works, why would you then merge with a complete unknown hanging to a brand, and the league is nothing other than a brand?
The marketing that they have?
What marketing? What is it? What's the marketing of this league? Tell me about the marketing of this. Who's running the marketing of it?
The fact you have a $4 billion ownership
uniforms.
group.
You have no football people.
Well,
you have no helmets. You have nothing. You have nothing but a name. That's all the XFL is right now.
No,
it's a name.
The XFL is the $4 billion behind it, with ties to Wasserman Media and Fenway Sports Group and insurance groups and streaming groups and production groups and things like that. There's a lot more behind Redbird.
The Fenway Sports Group has no interest in making spring football, putting spring football on their priority list.
Then why would all this be involved then? Why would they be involved with Redbird and all of this and doing this if they had no interest?
Because they want Redbird's money to be involved with the Boston Red Sox and to do bigger projects beyond that. Not spring. When you think about where you make money in sports from 1980 to 2000 to now 2020, who has ever made a dime off spring football?
When has spring football ever really gotten a shot? We're talking about a once in a multiple generation issue that happened this last year. I'm telling you,
we'd be watching XFL right now.
If it weren't for the pandemic, we'd be watching the XFL right now.
Well, if fans and butts were candies and nuts, what a Merry Christmas it would be.
Right, I know. Same thing.
What happened to the XFL the first time?
But see, you can't compare anybody that compares anything to 01.
Fine. Then what about the Alliance of American Football?
Totally different. Rushed, went in 9-month head start, went in under a year, had no money behind it.
So I just continue to bring up leagues to you, and you guys are saying, well, you can't compare with that, and that wouldn't work. But if not for the pandemic, the XFL would be a success.
The management and it's the pandemic. Those are two big things. USFL, you mentioned that. Look at the management in the USFL. They're paying Steve Young. How many dollars do they pay Steve Young to be the face of that league? They outbid the NFL, and it ended up breaking the USFL. You're talking about management issues, and you're not even giving a fair shake to the potential of the management that's coming on in the XFL with Danny and The Rock. You're not even, you're dismissing it already. You're just going, well, this is not going to work.
What have I seen from either of these people in running a football league?
What have you seen? What have you seen other than the football league that they've been successful at? Everything they've touched, they've been successful at. Everything. And just the XFL is going to be the one outlier, the one that doesn't work. Everything they touch works. Danny and The Rock, everything they touch works.
But how can you... Okay, so among the things, let's go through what they've touched. And let's compare it to how that has any relevance to running a professional football league.
But Danny and The Rock are not the face and the money and the branding behind it. They have Jeffrey Pollock. They're going to bring in like...
What's the brand?
What do you mean?
What's the brand of the XFL?
I don't know what you're asking.
Well, what is it?
Well,
because I look at the XFL right now. No, hold on.
Yeah.
I look at the XFL right now. What is it? The XFL right now is a logo that maybe they change it, maybe they don't. That's on your hat, Reed.
Terrible hat, by the way.
Terrible hat.
So there's your marketing. Do we have one person involved? Is there one player signed to a contract anywhere?
No.
Is there a football operations employee anywhere?
Jeffrey Pollock.
One. Okay. Is there another one?
There's a handful of people behind these.
Yeah. Tim Riskell, I think, is involved too.
Yeah, but we're getting...
why would you... If you're the XFL... Why, and you have a bunch of history and you've had a bunch of championships, are you going to put all of that aside and merge with Hulk Hogan, who's starting up an upstart league he says, I'm going to have 9 teams, and do it that way?
Because if the CFL didn't run last year and needed $30 million to do a bubble season, right? And they're going to do it this year, and they didn't get that money last year.
They might.
They didn't play this year. So where's that money going to come from, if not from Redbird or some other source? Because the CFL can't do it themselves this year. They proved it. They would have ran last year, and you're telling me that whatever they needed... I spoke
with some people at the federal government last week, and they are in conversations with the CFL right now.
That'd be wonderful.
Financing.
I mean, that'd be wonderful. I would love... I mean, the thing is, and what's been so interesting to me is I do think Americans, rightfully so, get this terrible arrogance. It's our way or the highway, all this kind of stuff.
Which it will be in this scenario when it comes to 4 downs. Which it will be in this scenario when it comes to the field. Which it will be in this scenario when it comes to having a ratio. Well, what's that team over your right shoulder in your twice failed league? Seattle Dragons.
Seattle Dragons breathing.
Seattle Dragons are going to have half their roster be Canadian.
Well, I think you can do a territory system like the AAF did, and you draft people out of the local territories that way. I think the field has to go. I just don't think the NFL stadiums can support that. But I think I have not heard any of our listeners, any of the other XFL media, any of the XFL press say no to 3 downs at all.
What's the XFL media and the XFL press? What is this? What are they covering? Nothing. There's no players on any roster. There's no
this right now. We're talking about this.
You're talking about nothing, though. You're talking about a league coming in and going with the XFL. What does the XFL media cover?
For the last 6 months, we've covered a lot of alternate football leagues and a lot of players from the XFL and the NFL. We've covered spring football. We've covered fan control football.
You're not covering a league because there is no league. The XFL is actually nothing.
There are assets. There's an organization. It isn't nothing.
What is that? What is assets? So name me a team in your twice failed league.
Once failed, and
all the teams still, everything's still.
Just name me a team.
Seattle Dragons, they're all still there.
Seattle Dragons. What are the Seattle Dragons?
They have leases in place, and it's
trademarks and logos.
I'm not going to disagree that there's not a lot there, but what I'm saying is I just don't get the other option. I mean,
by not a lot there, there's nothing there other than like moldy uniforms and expired helmets and shoulder pads.
I'm sure they washed the uniform.
Do they have a staff to go wash them?
Maybe Jeffrey Pollock's doing it.
Maybe Jeffrey Pollock's doing it. But I mean,
because here's the thing. To be fair, we're the XFL Markcast. I'm not, I come in.
Your marks. Yeah, I agree with that.
And so, it has nothing to be me about, trying to justify the XFL and anything. I'm just saying, an option has been presented from everyone that we've talked to Jim Mullen, president of Football Canada. We've talked to Rod Peterson. I know you've been on his show. We've talked to a lot of people that are covering this, and I'm talking to you. I mean, we're trying to get the whole picture here. And it sounds to me like the CFL is in dire straits. There's questions if they're going to run this year. The provinces are going into shutdowns. There's COVID issues. You're not going to have fans in the seats. So what are you going to do?
No, but Reed, here's what you do, Reed. You actually have some leadership and some people who put together an idea and a plan. What you have to understand about the CFL is that, hold on. I just let you do your little rant. Here's the issue. The CFL has been poorly run forever.
Yeah.
It's been poorly run at the league side and at the team side all over the place. Okay? They are always thinking about the now, and they're always looking for, well, in COVID terms, they're looking for a vaccine. They're looking for a magic bullet to save the day. Okay, that's all this XFL thing is right now. They're looking for a Hail Mary all the time. Doug Flutie got it to Gerard Phelan once. Okay, once. There's only one Aaron Rodgers who just pulls shit out of his ass all the time with Hail Marys. And let's not, as a Vikings fan, we don't discuss Aaron Rodgers too often. But where is the future of football going in this country? And this is what I want you guys to just hear me out on.
Yep.
And I think south of the border in certain markets, this may be the same too. Moms don't want, and by moms, the proverbial moms don't want their kids playing football anymore because their kids are going to get brain damaged, not concussed. Concussion is a nice way of saying they're going to get brain damage. So to keep the sport alive long term, where is this going? Well, if you look at football registration in this country right now, I actually made some notes to come on your podcast about your twice failed league.
I appreciate it.
You got it. Flag football. What? And you're saying, well, what does flag football have to do with anything? Do you know the plan is for flag football to be an Olympic sport in 2028? Yes. When the LA game, well, if the LA Olympics happen, who knows what's going to happen with the future of the Olympics because of COVID? Do you know that beginning next year, for football players registered under 12 in Canada, 12-on-12 tackle football is banned?
Why?
So the future, why? Because brain damage happens when you continue to collide head on head like this.
I know that. I get that. I played football.
So there is more of the emphasis on flag is significant. In 2020, now granted this is a COVID year, but there were 28,000 registered under 18 football players in Canada. 80% of those were non-contact. Spring of 2021, 90% of registered players in football flag. In 2018, flag football represented 41,000 participants, male and female. Tackle was 79,000 male, 1,300 female. The future of grassroots football is going into flag. Okay? If you are a business like the Canadian Football League, if you are seeing this happening right here, what has the CFL done to grow a grassroots flag football program? Nothing. Nothing. Their league, they knew basically in July, August that they were not going to play in 2020. They said we were going to come out and fix our business model. And what have they come back with? It's now April. We're coming up on what, 9 months?
Nothing.
Other than a merger with your twice failed league, nothing. There has been nothing other than let's strip the players for more money, let's cut staff, and staff who are making no money, let's take away from their pocketbooks too. So the issue with the CFL, yes, is their business program, but more than that is the leadership at the league level and at the team level to not even, like this is just a basic program where you can have an investment in get every kid playing flag football wearing a different CFL jersey. Make that a priority. Show moms, hey, we care about your young kid. We want to be part of this. But instead, they're looking for the Hail Mary all the time. They're saying, wait until we get out of the baseball stadium in Toronto. We're going to move outdoors. We're going to have tailgating. It's all going to be fixed like that. Wait till Johnny Manziel shows up. Then all our problems are solved and he's going to sell 1 million tickets. We're going to bring Ricky Williams to Toronto and he's going to take the city by storm. Nothing is a quick fix. Look, I understand The Rock has a lot of money, and I understand Redbird's got a lot of money. They have no idea how to run a pro football league. And everything that we have seen in spring football in every league all over the place has failed. And here's what I'm going to tell you guys about what I've noticed about rich people with a lot of money who invest in sport. They love it in the beginning. They love being called Mr. or Mrs. and their last name. They love getting to go to the parties with the players and the coaches. They love walking the field. They love being in the broadcast booth on ESPN and CBS and NBC and the rest. And then you know what happens after year one? They're like, oh, shit, we lost a lot of money. And then after year 2, they lose a lot more. And then suddenly that novelty, it wears off, and it wears off in a hurry. And then what ends up happening, all those ideas and all those plans and all those visions that they had for this thing, they start getting stripped away because it costs too much. That, and I'm not saying just football. That happens all the time in a lot of, and there's a reason why there's the 4 major sports, because those leagues have a business model where you don't lose money.
You can count 5 now. MLS has grown.
MLS has grown.
But
I'm with you there.
But you said
that's fair.
And so you said yourself, right, that there's issues with CFL management too, right, with ownership, with all this stuff. So if they're not going to come around to it, I mean, here you're presenting.
Why not?
Option.
But why not?
Well, because you just said they haven't in the last a year. I mean, because I'm on your side here, right? So if we're trying to save this, right? I mean, I don't want anything to die, right? I don't want anything. I mean, I cover the stupid Twitch football league. Don't talk to me about, covering not wanting stuff to succeed, right? So if you're saying for the last year, CFL ownership hasn't done enough, CFL management, they don't have a plan. So then are they just going to wake up tomorrow? I mean, what's the solution then?
I think he's
but
saying,
amidst all of this, they've survived 100 years. What other league has? What other league has?
So I think you're banking too much on the fact that they've survived for 100 years, as opposed to the fact that they need to survive for another 100 years. You're just like, well, they've survived for 100 years, and that's the explanation as to why they're going to survive 10 more.
If I had any evidence in front of me that says the XFL is going to work a third time, well, what's your plan? What's the plan? How is this going to work?
Your plan. Well, I mean, you've given a solution. You said the flag football thing is growing. That's your solution.
That's an idea. I'm saying they've come out with nothing. But you know what they tried to do? The brilliant minds at the league office, they came together and they said, we're going to charge our fans, get blood out of a stone, $300 a person if you would like to put your name on a virtual Grey Cup trophy.
That's dumb.
They thought that was going to sweep the country.
So to answer your
brilliance.
To answer your question about this surviving, so our parent site, XFL News Hub, did a wonderful interview this week with Dunk and Hodge over at 3 Down Nation. And, and John Hodge came on there and he said, I'm a XFL or a CFL loyalist, I'm colored, but this is what I want, right? And they had this great question, and they said, yes, the league has survived, but don't we want the league to thrive? There's a difference between surviving. So that's what I'm saying is if you've just, eked by the last, it's not 108 years, it's whatever from the CFL from 58 or whatever. At some point, don't you want to move this into the 21st century and get going here and figure out, streaming and video games and on demand and apps and getting the
by the way,
involved.
the Arena Football had video games too, multiple.
One.
Multiple, yeah.
So I'm just saying, at some point you. But
what I'm saying is, but why are you going all in with nothing on nothing? If I'm going to invest, okay, let's take this aside. Let's say I'm an investor in my own money, and you say to me, okay, let's invest into the XFL. I'm like, all right, what do you got? Well, we got The Rock and we got Danny. Cool. What else?
You have the 8 cities set up. You have logos. You have teams. You have a rule book. You have that thing.
What rule book?
The XFL rule book.
Oh, so then that's it. Well, it's the XFL rule book.
No, I'm saying. I feel like that is. I feel like that's a trap.
I'm asking what it is. I'm asking what it is I'm investing in.
I think you're investing in a potentially new way of thinking that could open you up to some ideas that the league has been closed off at for seemingly the last 20 years about doing things on demand and streaming and making games accessible for fans that would want to see it that aren't on TSN. That would be a start, allowing everyone to be able to watch the games in Canada. That would probably be a good
don't name me another team other than Seattle, because we've worn out Seattle.
We have the LA Wildcats. We have the Houston
Roughnecks. So I'll tell you this.
We have the Dallas Renegades.
If the LA Wildcats roll into Winnipeg or Saskatchewan or Hamilton, the number of Canadians who would give a flying bleep about the LA Wildcats quarterbacked by
Josh Johnson. Was this last quarterback? Was this last quarterback? I mean, we're talking.
I mean, I'm the franchise player, and you here talking about practice. We are talking about merging a league with Josh Johnson.
There you go. Here's the thing. I'm not saying it's a good answer, but what I'm saying is when Dave Naylor tweets today, hey, you better get your minds wrapped around a merger. That's just all I'm saying. I'm not saying it's a good idea, right?
That's what I'm telling you. It's not.
Well,
it's not.
It may not be, but if Dave Naylor is tweeting today, hey, get your minds wrapped around a potential merger coming on.
He also said if, and a capital if.
I've heard Dave Naylor is as close to anybody in this entire world with what's going on right now that could speak.
Yeah,
I'm just.
Do you want me to hop off here and let you guys just go out?
Sorry, Paul.
Well, the water carrying has got to be done by somebody.
What is the XFL? It's a league that gave Taylor Heineke a $4.75 million contract over 2 years. It's a league that gave PJ Walker numerous starts this season. So what's the XFL? It's the step to get you to the NFL here in the U.S. It is. The CFL
has been that too.
Mute him. There are success stories about people that have played in the XFL that have gone on to the NFL. And you're dismissing it as a twice failed league. One time because of a flippin' once in a multiple generation pandemic. You're dismissing it a second time, as opposed to, the first time that was whack. That was ridiculous. They tried to make it like the WWE, and it sucked. It was terrible. It was nonsense. I love the names on the back of the jerseys, but that was it. They actually had a system in place, an organization in place to make it happen this time, and the numbers proved it.
We have 30.
The problem was there was a pandemic.
No. The numbers proving it is just nonsense. You know why? Because the numbers proved it the first few weeks in 2001, didn't they? What did the numbers prove in the first third of the season of the first XFL go around? You cannot say anything was proven with a sample size of 6 weeks. 6 weeks does not determine anything.
How big was your sample size for the CFL last year?
100 years.
I'm talking about last year, man. We're talking 1 year to 1 year. What was your sample size last year?
Listen.
Oh wait.
What you're telling me is you're AAA baseball. You're the AHL. You're saying this is where you're going to get guys on the way to the show. I'm telling you there is not a big enough audience for that long term. I will assure you of that. It doesn't matter what sport. It has nothing to do with football. If you're going to be the pathway for Taylor Heineke to go from the Vikings and the practice roster and then out of football on the couch and then he ends up in the XFL and then he goes and gets an opportunity in the NFL, that is not going to get people interested. Because guess what? The best story of all was Kurt Warner, Iowa Barnstormers, and we've already talked about where Arena ended up.
I'm turning down the heat in my house. the nest is getting.
I was like, wait for Reed to jump in there.
Well, I had my staff.
I was waiting for you to do the Iraqi thing. You were running, Reed. Come on now, what happened? You're out of breath.
I have my Mike Mitchell stat here. 38 XFL players on the NFL roster and 80 former XFL players are on CFL rosters right now. I agree that
but nobody cares.
Well, 1.3 million people a week cared.
They did for the first few weeks. How many people watched the first few weeks of the first XFL go around? And then how many watched at the end?
Well, but again, that's
But because it doesn't fit your narrative.
Well, it doesn't fit your narrative. If they had called it something completely different than the XFL the second time around.
No, if this was AAF, if the CFL came out today and the AAF was just launching, I'd say this is stupid too. And if the CFL was going to merge with the Spring League that's just about to launch with Mike Riley, who's had so much success at the CFL and college level, if Mike Riley puts his stamp on it, let's do that. That's stupid too. You need to have something with a little bit of a proven track record. There is nothing here that suggests that these guys are going to have anything that's going to work longer than a couple of years.
And there's
at best.
And there's nothing in current ownership in the CFL that's going to suggest you guys are going to make it another couple years.
Says who?
This is the books. It sounds like
you're contradicting yourself. Really?
No, I'm not, because but the reason why this year, I just told you, the reason why is they're working with the federal government to get some kind of funding. Plus, and this is where it's going to get really interesting. Is what the CFL's long-term plan here is to minimize and crush Canadians and dismantle the Canadian Football Players Association. And by merging and by doing this with the twice failed league, what they're going to be able to do is really reduce player salaries, which is absolutely what they want. That's their intention, and that's a big part of this.
And I'm with you on that same page. They shouldn't be reducing player salaries anymore. They're not getting paid enough. They're not getting paid enough.
So let me ask you this then. When we announced that you were going to come on, polarizing, needless to say, had a lot of DMs. One I got last night from a listener. He goes, he's a really nice guy, but I hate his guts. So
nice.
But here's the thing, because we give the big thing on our show.
Only half of that is true.
Well, that's true. We like to. I'm a solutions opinions guy on here, right? We're not, and I've even with the CFL people on the boards and stuff. I think we get credit for being open minded, having both sides, all this kind of stuff. A lot of criticism that I've seen from you are, he hates the CFL, anti-CFL, all that stuff, right? So if we want it to succeed, if we want you to not be the bad guy, right, to be the I hate the CFL thing, what do we do here? What do what?
Yeah, but besides 25 people tell me I hate the CFL, how much do you think that affects me?
Well, and that's fine. It's not at all. But I'm just saying, I want to get solutions here. Besides moving to flag football.
Let me just throw this scenario at you guys. Let's just say somehow, some way, your twice failed league actually succeeded once, and it lasted about 10 or 15 years, and then it was in some financial turmoil. And then a league in Norway says to you, hey, let's merge. We got ourselves an Olympic speed skater who's a mega star out here, and we're going to change your rules.
I'm all in.
Let's put your teams together with the 8 teams in Oslo and everywhere else, and we're going to play by a whole new set of rules, and somebody else is going to run the league, but we're going to merge. What are your thoughts on that?
You're assuming that it's the XFL rules. I love your rules. I want Canadian rules.
And there is no way, Paul, you know this and I know this. There is no way there is going to be any kind of broadcast revenue in the United States for 3-down football with a field that size, with a 55 and a C in the middle of the field, and with goalposts at the front of the end zone.
Well, the goalposts at the front.
You and I both know, all three of us know, there is no chance that's going to happen.
But here's the thing, and we've talked with it. We are football fans.
We all are. Of course we are.
It doesn't need to be. And I've talked with a lot of people this week, and they go, I ask them, I go, are you a football fan or are you a CFL fan? And they go, I'm a CFL fan. I go, well, then I can't help you because we cover football on this show. And if you're telling me if someone's coming in and doing whatever, like I said, if I spent the last 6 months of my life covering the stupid fan-controlled football, spending 40 freaking hours a week interviewing all these stupid players, we are fans of football. And so if you're asking me if they're going to come in and help the league if we're in turmoil and move on, I'm for it at this point. But that's clearly not how a lot of CFL fans are. And that's what we're trying to figure out here. Because it doesn't seem like you guys, and that's fine. I mean, you can go down with the ship. But like I said, from everybody that I've talked to on XFL and CFL sides, and I'm not a big whatever insider person, but it really seems like something is happening with unified leagues and unified rules, whatever that is.
Yeah, I don't even know what that is. I don't even know what that means. But I'll tell you this, in November of 2019, which isn't that long ago, the boastful commissioner of the Canadian Football League said, we have our ownership set up. It's time to take the next step as a league. We have CFL 2.0 global expansion. We are bigger and badder than we've ever been before. We are not a small-time league. We are... Then the pandemic hits and they're like, yeah, our business model doesn't work and we have problems with ownership. Yeah. So which one is it, guys? Which one? That's what we're asking. Which one is it?
We're there with you.
Yeah, we're there with you.
And I think it's a lot more the latter than it is the former.
Yeah.
But I truly believe this. Selling your soul to go down the river with something that is not established whatsoever for a product that very easily can get forgotten about in the sports landscape is a major mistake.
Okay.
Do you think that are you against the idea of spring football of any kind? I think that's what you said earlier in all this.
It's not that I'm against the idea of spring football of any kind. I truly do not believe spring football can work in North America.
You just don't think there's the bandwidth.
Paul, what was our wager on Sunday? And I'm being dead honest with you. I'm assuming you live in California or Arizona or something.
I live in California, and I was born and raised in Tucson, so that's why I'm very partial to the Wildcats. So what happened at 2:06 in the fourth quarter? What happened at 2:06? Tell me what happened there. We're gonna break this down. You remember what happened with 2 minutes?
What I'm going with this is spring football has in its way the NCAA tournaments.
I see where you're going.
Has itself the Masters. Has itself. What's going to be the bigger deal? The NFL draft or the XFL playoffs? Like there's an appetite for football at certain points of the year, and there's appetite for only certain bits of football. And I wish it wasn't that way, because truthfully, guys, if it were up to me, if there was a Stanley Cup Finals game and there was a high school football game on, I'm watching the high school football game. I love football. I hate football 6 days a week because it drives me crazy, because they're killing these guys, because they're modern day tobacco. But then, damn it, the game starts and it's a beautiful thing to watch when there's not needless head hits for no reason. But what we've seen for generations, plural, what we've seen in so many different indoctrinations, indoor, outdoor, small field, big names, no names, middle of the road names, is that it doesn't work. It hasn't worked. And God bless Dwayne Johnson for sleeping on a mattress in Calgary and his supposed passion for the CFL. But I just do not see how there is a long-term interest when this thing will hemorrhage money long-term. It will, because there will be some interest, there will be some broadcast revenue in the beginning, there will be committed ownership in the beginning, and then the losses will pile up. And the reason why Redbird's interested in going to the Boston Red Sox is because the Boston Red Sox are able to play a Major League Baseball season with zero revenue from fans and still be okay. The NFL and teams in California had how many fans this season? Zero. And yet they were still able to make it a go because they're a plus revenue before they sell a ticket, a parking spot, a popcorn, a Coca-Cola, or beer. I don't know if you can say Coca-Cola anymore in the state of Georgia, but that's a different story. What I'm saying here is football works. Spring football doesn't. And everything we've ever seen has proven that and shown that. And so for the CFL to completely throw the baby out with the bathwater, I am not on board with that. I am a fan of football. I want to see Canadian football succeed. I get that kids don't grow up wanting to be CFL players. It's not because they have NFL dreams. It's because they want to make the money. And kids are not going to grow up saying, man, I want to be a Seattle Dragon. They're saying, I want to be a Seattle Seahawk. But there's more of a chance that they're going to say, I want to be a Saskatchewan Roughrider if I grew up in Saskatchewan.
And I don't disagree. To be fair, from the beginning, we've always said, the XFL needs the lineage and the legacy. The CFL needs, at this point, some money, right? And so I'm not saying that I think that it's the best solution, right? And we certainly didn't get into this. You talk about XFL media and stuff. I didn't think a year ago that we would be talking to a CFL, broadcaster right now and doing these sorts of things, right? But I think if this is where it is, if this is something that is on the table and being presented, I'm just trying to kind of navigate what this is going to look like. And I'm not saying it's the right answer, but it is an answer. And if everything that's happened in the last year and a half that we've gotten to this point, and now I see photos of Ontario, I think this morning, looking just like Seattle did last year with people lined up at Costco waiting for a stay-at-home order. I mean, we lived through all that last year. And if this is what got us to this point, I'm not saying it's what anyone wanted, but if it's where we are now, then we need to figure it out.
I don't know what. Yeah, figure it out. Okay, but figure it out before you're fully in on this thing.
Well, and that's, I mean, I think that's what they're doing. Right?
Like imagine this being your money. Imagine that this being your passion. You're like, I'm not putting everything I've worked for to be like, well, let's just go all in and see what happens. How diversified is your stock portfolio, Canadian Football League? Like, you had a year to come up with something, and it's this and nothing else?
I agree.
And to that point, like, we're making a lot of assumptions as to what is going on internally in the organization of the XFL. You're saying you don't think they have anything. We're defending it more so, and you're saying twice failed league. You're saying they don't have anything. We, the three of us, do not know what's being talked about inside the organization. They could have a lot more that they haven't rolled out. You have to agree with me on that.
Yeah, we don't know anything. Yeah, that's true. But here's what we do know. How many staff people do they have? How many players do they have under contract? How many coaches do they have in place? What's the whole structure going to be? I bet we don't know, but I bet they don't have a lot of those answers themselves. They may have a few, but I bet you they don't have many.
Well, I think, from what I've been told, these talks have gone back to, at least October, when they bought the league in August. I would think we would have been much further along with the XFL structure in place right now had all these talks not been going on since October. So I think, it is fair to criticize them and judge them. I absolutely agree, right? But it is also saying like, well, why would they be building this infrastructure internally if they didn't even know where these talks were going to end up? So I think it's the chicken before the egg, but I do think that they're both connected in that way.
So Redbird is investing how much into this thing?
Let me do the math here.
Yeah, I have Twitter researchers that do this information for me.
Well, you got yourself a staff, man.
No, I have.
Here's my staff.
No, I have. It's a blessing and a curse.
This as a staff.
I do know that Redbird is definitely putting more money behind the Fenway Sports deal because of course you have the Red Sox, you got Liverpool. You don't mention Liverpool at all. They're involved in that as well. I'm trying to see real quick how much money they actually have put capital into this thing. They manage over $4 billion in assets. That's more money than Vince. I'm trying to think here. This article doesn't say it. It's from our partners over at XFL News Hub.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks, Mark, for that. Right.
Roughly, what's your guess?
I would guess.
Well, they bought it for $15 million.
So this is my point. They can walk away with this and it'll be a drop in the bucket.
Oh, yeah.
Then what?
Why would they buy it if they didn't want to make it work, though?
But then what?
They'll give it a try. But then what? Here's the thing: if you've spent $15 million on something and you end up being like, there are CFL teams, guys. Understand this? Like, they're losing around $10 million a year. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you're going to end up in a situation where you're going to be losing way more annually than you put into this thing, good night, goodbye. And what do I have? Like, and what's my consequence? Just some money. What wreckage have you left behind?
A lot.
Everybody goes in with good intentions. Nobody outside of reality TV people probably goes into a marriage saying, well, I'm hoping for a divorce. Shit happens. And what we've seen in pro sports is a lot of shit happens and a lot of losses happen. And what's the appetite for losses for how long? And then what happens when that person walks? What's left?
Good questions.
I agree.
Moldy jerseys.
I agree. I'm not saying, I think we're further together on this than we are apart. I mean, I hate to tell you that.
Agree.
I mean, I do. It came into this and bitches this big, whatever. I mean, I have as much criticisms for anything we cover as anybody. And so I agree with you, and, and I'll have the egg on my face with the XFL hat and all the other stuff. But I mean, I don't agree. It's the best solution. It's just a solution. So
to me, it's not even a solution. Yeah. To me, it's an idea. And to me, it's okay, let's see if some things can work. But this all-out merger, and it's either we have to do this or the league folds and there's no owners to do it, is, to me, further really illustrates just how lost the CFL is, how poor the leadership is, how the lack of vision for what that's going to mean for grassroots football in this country, for the development of amateur football in this country, the fact that they've had a year to try and solve some different business issues, and all they've really done is come up with this and firing people. It's brutal. And they have done nothing to look into ways to generate more money other than a virtual Grey Cup trophy to put your name on it. It's as Paul's friends at the NCAA would call this, it's a lack of institutional control.
And just to round that out, we had our conversation with Jim last week. Jim Mullen really did run through all the ramifications of dismantling the Canadian football system from all those levels you talk about, right? Because when we look at this and we're joking and whatever, XFL-CFL, I mean, this is a nation of football infrastructure that would have to change. And so, yes, I mean, I definitely think that there's colossal, thousands of different, millions of different things that are going to be impacted by this.
What happened at 2:06 of the basketball game? I'm trying to remember. It
was a kickball on Stanford.
Oh, right.
Called a foul in Arizona.
Yes.
So,
yes.
In that situation, had they called those things right, you would have had to, you probably would have contributed a little bit more to Children's Hospital LA. I do appreciate that donation.
Yeah, no, likewise.
And
likewise.
So before
Stanford, by the way, the last 3 possessions, not even getting a shot up. What are they doing? Golly.
Before we let you go, what was the wager on this for you to come on? We're gonna tweet out and donate something. Can you remind me on that?
That's what we're talking about.
No, but for the game, but for him coming on the podcast, we have to do that too.
So I'm gonna put a tweet out.
Yep.
And you guys can retweet, but also just Bishop's University is my alma mater. It's a small school, an hour and a half from Montreal. They have a program, the refugee sponsorship program, basically refugees from countries all over the world looking for a shot at a better life. We have a number of refugee students who are getting a degree at Bishop's and have graduated, moved on to different things. So we're just trying to get some money raised to help them do their thing, get a degree, maybe have a beer or two in Lennoxville, Quebec while they're getting their degree. And so it's the Bishop's University Refugee Sponsorship Program. If anybody could make a donation, that would be outstanding. And Paul and I had a friendly wager on the Arizona-Stanford game. And I guess we got our gambling screws mixed up because we both made a donation. I don't even know what we were betting in the end, other than everybody got a donation, which is great.
Good.
I think what happened was you were like, Children's Hospital's getting a donation. Either way this goes. You ended up doing the 25 that you said you do if Arizona won. So I doubled that because your pick won. So I sent $50 to Bishop's U, and I encourage anyone and everyone to donate to Bishop's U refugee sponsorship program.
Although the 50 Canadian dollars is probably going to be 25 US anyway, or something like that.
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, thank you for coming on. I feel like this has been a duel as advertised. I feel stronger.
Always nice to talk about your twice failed league with you guys.
I feel good about my Photoshop skills. I hope you enjoyed the video thumbnail art for this episode, and we will certainly welcome you back on once the merger is complete, and then you can tell us that we were right. So you will always have a seat here at the Markcast.
And 2 years after that, let's have another talk about.
We will. The thrice. It won't be the twice. It will be the thrice failed league.
I gotta play the lottery tonight. Can you give me some lottery numbers, Arash?
Sure.
You see the future.
Let's start with 206.
Oh, I see what you did there. Okay. Yeah. Get him out of here.
Get
him out of here,
boys.
Hey, thank you so much. Take care and God bless.
All right. See you guys.
Stay safe. Whew. Spicy.
Oh, man. I will say my only thing I thought about this, I laid awake last night thinking about this. When Arash said, how much money has Redbird invested in the XFL? And I knew the $50 million purchase, and I knew that they acquired the debt that was like another $13 million or something. But I was just in my head when he asked, I was sitting there racking my head like, okay, well, do we know? Have they invested anything else? Like I was trying to like figure out if there was any other stories. So don't kill me on that. I'm sure like Mike Mitchell is sitting there listening, like Reed's a dummy. He didn't, but that, I will say the second we got done, I was like, I knew that. I mean, I knew that, but that was my defense was I was trying to figure out if there was like any other stuff going on.
Yeah. I mean, I go back to the point, like, we don't know what money they're still spending right now. Yeah, they paid $15 million for it. Yeah, and then they paid $13 million for the debt, whatever. $30 million deal. But we don't know what they're spending at this moment per day to get ready for a season later on. We don't know that. We're just speculating. And I think that's something that Arash is not necessarily taking into account. And yeah, I get his point about, the Fenway Sports Group, the purchase of part of that. You got two well-known sports franchises, the Lost in Red Sox, the garbage team, and then Liverpool in England. Like that's a significant thing to have in the portfolio. So if they're playing in that sandbox, why wouldn't they want the same thing for this XFL thing? Wouldn't they want that to be as lucrative as a property as those two, as much as it pains me to admit Boston's a lucrative property? Wouldn't they want this XFL thing to have that kind of, they're not just going to throw $30 million away if they're playing around in that sandbox. They want to elevate that.
I think so. I think they've proven that they want to, going into Liverpool, going into Fenway. I mean, I think that they're really wanting to expand that out. And I think, when Arash says, what do people know? What do they know about running the football league? What did Vince know? I don't think we need to play this clip. We're just looking at time-wise. What did Vince know about running the football league? Nothing. But he hired Oliver Luck, and then Oliver Luck came in and said, "This is what we're going to do." He hired Sam Schwartzstein, and so like just because you don't know what to do doesn't mean that you're not talented enough and skilled enough with the money and the marketing. You know what I mean? Like
people around you that do know what to do.
But yeah, I mean, like Vince doesn't know anything about football, like at all. Like Vince didn't play. Vince doesn't know anything, but he hired Oliver Luck. And what did everyone credit the XFL 2020? The league was good, the rules were good, the play was good, all this kind of stuff. And so just because you don't know, I'm a videographer and I don't know anything about my taxes, you hire someone to do that stuff. You pay someone to do that. And so I don't think that that's a fair criticism all the time when you have as much leverage and power as they have.
And the kind of money they have too.
Yeah.
I mean, they have $5 billion in assets they oversee. Is that what I was reading correctly?
It's like four and change. $4 billion and change.
It's just pocket change for them. But you get what I'm saying? It's like they have the money to put the people around it to make it work.
Yep.
They will find the people. They will surround themselves with the people. So the specific thing about the twice-failed league, again, your point is if they had called it anything but the XFL the second time around, it wouldn't be known as a twice-failed league.
No.
That's the stigma.
I was going to say one thing to you, and the name escaped me when we were talking with Rosh. Scott Pioli is the former Patriots, like GM, and he's worked with all these. There's rumors going around that like he is someone that like is interested in like coming into the XFL and like that when they were talking about the chief football officer stuff, and like he is someone that has spent 30 years in the NFL that could come in and be like, this is how we're running the league and this is how we're going. And so the name escaped me, Scott Pioli, but he's on Good Morning Football all the time. He's won Executive of the Year like 5 times for NFL, and that is someone that you could bring in a heartbeat and turn stuff around.
Right. So moving on here. There's what is this? Talk about XFL board, CFL story. Did we already talk about that?
No. So just a quick note. I'll keep this short because we are running long and we're going to get through the rest of this. I know Paul wants to go. Well, no, we can't go. I could go on this for half an hour. CFL or XFL board is a forum, right? XFL board forum for people, whatever. So there was a rumor that came out this week that someone posted on their Polar Bear or Polar Panda or something that they had all this inside information into the CFL merger and all this kind of stuff. And what happens is, and I understand it's a message board, and I understand that it's like post whatever you want on there. But XFL board is connected to Twitter, and they automate those posts. And so when you post a thing on there, it automates it and sends it out. And so the XFL board Twitter account has 9,400 people that follow it and change. At one less now because they blocked me. And so I came home from a walk, and this story was sent to me, and it was sent to Josh and Jay and Mike Mitchell and Mark, all the XFL writers. And they go, hey, Jake sent this to me, Max sent this to me, all these people sent this to me, like, hey, what's going on with this? We see this news, what's going on? So I tweeted to them, and I said, hey, XFL board, do you guys have any more insights about this? There's a lot of confusion. And basically Mark, and I shame on Mark Nelson that runs this board. They blocked me and they unfollowed it. And they basically blocked all the XFL News Hub writers because we asked, like, hey, this is a message board. It's going out to 9,400 people. I understand that it's like moderate yourself, whatever. But at that point, you have some responsibility, right? And so I woke up the other day, they had blocked everybody. And that's when I did my big post about, we are both journalism people. You work in the news industry. I've worked in it for a decade. You've worked in it for most of your life. I'm not just an internet troll. I know that we joke, and I think that's the pleasure of our show is that we, can mess with you. Yeah, that we can challenge Arash to a duel, but then still like bring you credible news and whatever, right? And so I just be careful of these rumors going around, and because it just went wildfire, and it gets into all this stuff, and I hate sowing confusion, and shame on XFL board and everybody involved in that for how that was handled and for blocking us. Merely all I did was ask, do you have any sources to back this up? Because you guys are causing a lot of confusion.
Yeah, I mean, you're 100% right. I stick by your questioning of that.
So,
all right. So, Ron Peterson said a source was telling him that CFL leaders are talking about dropping 5 Canadian players per team for the rosters and reducing the starters ratio down to 3 starters. Yeah. And to reiterate, they're talking. Not a sure thing, but potentially big news. Yes, it is. Because as we learned from Jim, the ratio thing is a big thing. It's a big thing. Yeah. And we were dismissive of it at first. Like, who cares about ratio? But once Jim explained it to us, we're like, okay, that makes sense why that they put that in there is because both the college team and the youth football, everything is symbiotic. Everything relies on each other. So having the ratio drop that low, yikes.
Oh, I tweeted when Rod sent that out. I go, it begins. Because and again, I don't want the Americanization of the CFL. I don't want this takeover. I don't want that. But when I see something like that and they're talking about reducing the numbers, and then the other story they were talking about, normally they have like 2 global player positions per team, and they're talking about dropping that down to 1. And part of that could just be because of travel restrictions and COVID and tryouts and all that kind of stuff. But these are things that are like institutions in the CFL. And when they're talking about this, I just think that's crazy.
I think it goes to underscore that there's way more discussion about the merger than what's being let on. If they're already discussing dropping the ratio down and the Canadian players per team, it's seeming like there's a lot more. The merger negotiations are a lot further on than they're letting on.
Yeah, and then the final note about CFL stuff, we talked about this with Arash. I want to reiterate the number of players. You have 38 XFL players playing in the NFL right now, and you have 80 former XFL players in the CFL. And so when there's questions about legitimacy and league and ability, I mean, I get where Arash is talking about that we don't want like the NFL light or we don't want the leftovers, but I think that the quality of play is there. I think if they would have had a year to get by, it would have been totally different.
Agree.
Do you want to do the Mexican Football League? We'll do all spring league stuff with Brian, and then we'll just finish with the fan controlled stuff at the end.
Yeah, the Mexican Football League, the Pro Football League down in Mexico, has decided to postpone again another season, and they're putting it off till 2022. a little bit of news that just barely came out before we started recording. And maybe it's, I think it's probably COVID related, because it seems like both borders, north and south, don't quite have a handle on it as well as we do. Forgive the American arrogance, but that's the situation that's going on. And I think this is also part of that whole, we're going to be in this thing probably for another 6 months. And by we, I mean the world in general, not necessarily the US. It seems like we're turning a corner. But these are things that need to be taken into account. If Canada's having problems, if Mexico's having problems, where Mexico postponed a season. Interesting.
Yeah. So we'll do all the spring league stuff with Brian. I got a couple notes I want to make sure I ask him about. We're going to talk with him, and then we're going to there is just a little bit of fan control football stuff at the end I want to hit on. So we'll talk with Brian. We'll do that, and then we'll see you guys after.
Ryan Woods with the Spring League. Thanks for joining us here on the XFL Markcast.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me on.
It's a busy day. It's a busy time. The amount of pouring the feedback that I've gotten from our listeners when I posted that you were coming on, wanting to ask me one question, and I want you to see if you can remember what that question would be.
One question. I don't know. Did it involve Jousters merchandise?
It could have potentially involved. I'll tell you, it's not just me. Kenny, Jenna, Andrew, all the listeners. They want the status of the Jousters merch from November of 2020.
You're going to get it. The interesting thing is, the last time you and I spoke, by the time I came on the show, everything had been shut down in San Antonio in terms of, we had put our equipment in storage. My equipment managers were already back in their respective places of domicile. So we didn't really have anybody that could readily access the Jousters merchandise. But I can assure you that a football helmet and jerseys are certainly coming your way very soon. Perfect. So we definitely want to get to that. The other news I can drop on you guys, and this is an exclusive on your podcast, is that the Jousters will be the first big game, if you want to call it a game of the week, because all of our games are going to be televised. Yep. And I will be able to tell you more next week, because we're going to have a bigger announcement next week in terms of our TV schedule. But the Jousters will be in action game one against our defending league champion Generals. So they'll be front and center. So we're pretty excited about that.
Yeah, we're excited, and I'm really excited. We've spent. I do want to get your takes on fan control football here, at least to ask you if you have any tangential knowledge of that here in a minute. But I am really excited for the spring league to come back. I think there's no denying the talent and the quality of the football and the players you guys have. I mean that in ultimate sincerity across the board. I think is tremendous. We've talked with many of them on our show. And so I know that we are very excited, and our listeners are very excited to see you guys all return to the field. So I do mean that 100%.
No, I appreciate that. I mean, the one thing for sure is that we know we've got a little bit of a runway here. That the CFL has not played a game since 2019. They are teetering on the verge of collapse right now. There's a lot of things at play, including COVID. They're still dealing with the ramifications in Canada with COVID. They have provinces up there that are getting ready to go into total lockdown. So the prospects of the Canadian Football League playing this year, but more importantly, playing in stadiums where you can have fans in attendance, which is such a crucial component of their business model, is just not looking good right now. So our league serves as a real platform for these guys to stay active, to stay relevant, and we're playing. I joke to everybody else that our motto should be, we play, because we're actually playing, and we're going to be playing again this spring. And, it's been a while since the CFL has lined up and played. And, obviously with the XFL, I know that was a good experience for some of the players before they came to the spring league, but certainly as a football person and understanding exactly just what goes into building a league from the beginning and kind of our genesis, and just how difficult it is to put a quality product on the field and the amount of time that you have to do it in. The idea or the notion that the XFL could play in 2022 at this point is absurd. It's just, I could probably tell you with great certainty, it's just not going to happen. So you're looking at 2023 at best. That is if it ever returns. So in the meantime, we want to establish ourselves as kind of the professional outdoor football league outside of the National Football League here in the United States and abroad. And we've got, some more plans to expand our international development program. We're bringing on some better coaches. I say better, I'd say maybe coaches that have, more name recognition that fans are going to know. Fox is 100% committed to our property. So that was the interesting thing last year is once we ended our 2020 season, I think a lot of people wrote us off immediately and said, oh, they're never coming back. They're like every other league that shut down. That wasn't the case whatsoever. It had nothing to do with our financial solvency. It had everything to do with the fact that we had planned a short abbreviated season, and that was our plans, and that's what we did. And we came back and regrouped, albeit not in the perfect situation, having to do it weeks later. But we were able to regroup and finish the season strong with the championship game, in Orlando. But we've got quite a runway here. And while we have a business model that we've been following, kind of slow growth has been our motto, we're certainly looking to expand and we're certainly looking to grow. And we are not taking, at this point, our approach is not to take a backseat to anybody. So, we're excited about the upcoming season. And I think you guys are going to be very impressed with some of the quarterback names that come out next week. So our quarterback play was good last year, and I felt like the product looked good. But really, at the end of the day, we want to have good quarterbacks and we want to have consistent play. And so some of the guys that are going to be joining us this year are going to be recognizable, and they're going to be guys that I think are going to make our product look even better.
Yeah. Cool. I mean, we just had Matt Mangle on the show 2 weeks ago. He's moving up to the CFL. I know that Matthew Sexton just got signed with the Steelers. I mean, Brian Scott, I know how to try out with the Colts a few months back. I mean, these are players that have told us that they feel like they would not have been put in these positions to succeed if it weren't for being able to play for you guys. So, I feel like we've really tried to tout the horns as hopefully you don't veer into traffic there with the sirens. But I think That's all right. No, but I do think, and even from the press release that came out with Jerry Granville and Bart Andrus and Kevin Gilbride, with former XFL Guardians coach, now is going to be leading the Jousters, I believe. Tremendous amount of coaching talent as well. How difficult was that, or to get those coaches involved, or are they excited to jump on the product with you guys?
Yeah, I think the bottom line is we've been out there now since 2017. So some of these coaches have had experiences in alternative professional football leagues, i.e. the AAF or the XFL. And I think they've seen us as being a consistent player in the space and they've spoken to other coaches that have been involved with us for several years now. And while Bart Andrus isn't necessarily a recognizable or household name, Bart Andrus was a head coach in NFL Europe for several years. So I'm looking to hire the best coaches that are going to help develop our talent. And we're building slowly, but we're doing it the right way in the sense that first and foremost, I wanted to be able to create a product where other leagues come into formation. And the first thing is, let's be big. Let's be in multiple markets. Let's hire all these big name coaches and spend probably way more than what they really need to spend to retain those kind of guys' services. And let's just find the best product we can find or the best player we can find. Let's have no concern over their age. And that's really a mainstay of the spring leagues, that we're really looking to develop that player that's 23, 24 years old, that Matt Sexton that's right out of college and for whatever reason hasn't caught on with the team yet. So I've got to have guys that buy into it, that buy into developing players first and foremost as we slowly grow, because we're going to have some big plans to announce with the spring league and what we're doing going forward in 2022 and beyond. And those announcements will come probably during this season or right at the end of this season. So it wasn't very difficult for me to sell the coaches, not just on what we're doing right now, but getting them involved at this juncture so that they can be along for the ride when we expand into 2022 and subsequent years. So, but it's definitely good to have coaches like that. And Kevin Gilbride will be another really solid name to add to our list of coaches that are going to be involved.
What went into the decision to pick two cities this time in two different bubbles as opposed to just one city, one bubble?
Yeah, I think, again, it's just part of our expansion. I think from a standpoint of it was just a spring league, absent a major media partner that is Fox, then I think it would be a much easier decision to say, okay, let's make things a little more efficient. Let's operate out of one market. This is part of our growth pattern. So the idea always from just the spring league business model alone, even before Fox's involvement, was to have 4 teams in one region of the country, whether that be the Southeast or the Midwest, the North, the Pacific Coast. And so you will see more of that potentially going forward. But that's kind of the idea. This is just part of our growth. And I think, look, again, outside of putting teams in 8 different markets, I think that's very problematic. And this is why I can tell you with great certainty that the XFL playing in 2022 would be a very difficult journey. You're not marketing in those cities yet. Yes, there was an XFL presence in some of these markets 2 years ago, but what's happened since then? What's happened since these teams have folded? So the idea to have regional teams or have teams in one area of the country that eventually could be attached to certain cities, and these cities at some point could each take a turn over 2 to 3 years of hosting the league, if you will, or at least a division in that league, and eventually be awarded a full-time team. I think that's a better way to market our league and get people excited about our league and really build a fan base from a grassroots perspective. So we're excited about it. And certainly it's a little more to manage, and it's definitely a lot more moving parts. One example I'll give you is that when we have this every year, I'm always on site the entire time, but I'm in one location and I can do that. This year it's going to be a lot more difficult. So I know we've got staff in both markets. We've got boots on the ground already. I'm going to have to go back and forth and obviously spend some time with the children at home. I have a 2-year-old boy. I have a 7-month-old little girl. So I can't be away from them for 2 months. So it's going to be a lot of air travel for me, but we're excited about it. And I think you guys, again, one of the biggest things I'm excited about this year is just the exposure we're going to get by having all of the games televised and not doing it at a time of the year where we're going to be competing against college football, the National Football League, even high school to some extent on Friday nights. We were being diluted in the fall. Week 1, we were going head to head with Game 6 of the World Series. Week 2, it was the fallout from the election. It wasn't until week 3 that people actually started paying attention. And by week 4, we were done. So it was, it'll be interesting to see. I think Fox and I are both very intrigued to see what sort of ratings or viewership we can get at a time of year that a football person that I like to think of myself as a football person. I hope I'm a football person, being that I do this for a living, but I'm always looking for football in the early summer months. I'm not necessarily interested in football right after the Super Bowl. So I think we're interested to see what sort of viewership when we're competing against baseball and golf. And I think I like our chances right now. So we'll see how that goes. But, again, just very excited about the upcoming season.
Yeah, I think it's a tremendous opportunity to see what interest there is. We've been covering obviously the CFL-XFL merger and potential crazy season. What the heck are they going to do? And your talk with the cities and the bubbles goes along. XFL Extra Points on Twitter, I had asked people if they had questions with you coming on. He had said, so the eventual goal is to get to cities eventually, or continue in these host cities for the bubbles.
I think short term, obviously for this year and maybe even 2022, is to be in these hubs, if you will, or these bubbles, and then expand from there. But again, we are not precluding ourselves from being in more markets, obviously in 2022. So we're excited. And look, at the end of the day, I always said the ultimate goal for me with this league was an eventual partnership with either the National Football League or a big media partner. So knowing that Fox has bought into our property and is totally supportive of what we're doing and want to help us grow it and are willing to infuse capital into the business to do so, is we've got a very promising future. So we don't want to outkick our coverage right off the bat. We had we really had to kind of temper our enthusiasm when Fox first came on board, because obviously there was not just the production value that they were going to bring to the table and the exposure that we were going to get by having a partner such as Fox, but there was also that monetary component that we had never had before. So all of a sudden, wow, look what we can do with this. So I think we had to be very disciplined in our approach, and that's always the way we've looked at our business model. But, again, I think that there's a lot of possibilities on the table for 2022. And so you could see us in definitely multiple markets. That possibility is definitely out there.
We had Arash Madani on the show earlier before we talked to you, and he completely dismissed the idea, the notion of spring football. When you have someone that comes on, and let's call it what it is very negative about the idea of spring football in any way, shape, or form. What do you say to change that person's mind, and how do you try to like sway them to maybe understand that this does work?
Well, the one thing I think, look, there's a couple of points there. Number one, in recent times, we've seen 2 attempts at spring football on a grand scale by business models that, let's just call it for what it is. The blueprint was pretty much identical. We're starting at the same time. We're going to start in 8 separate markets. We're going to hire big name coaches. It's going to be the full bells and whistles. We saw that with the AAF. We saw that with the XFL. So I think the fact that those leagues failed, whether it was COVID related or not, with obviously factored into the circumstances with the XFL, 2 leagues with very similar business models failed in back-to-back years. As a matter of fact, I even mentioned to Oliver Luck and some of the people associated with the XFL that the worst thing that could happen in my mind was that the AAF folded and went away so quickly, because that audience that you had, or at least the people that were trying to finally buy back into spring football, could potentially just meet your product with a high degree of skepticism. But even with that climate, the XFL was still able to find viewership and attractive numbers. And the AAF, to that extent, had very good ratings right off the bat. Now, granted, that waned a little bit. And I think ultimately everybody wanted to see what would happen when the XFL went head-to-head with March Madness. I think that's kind of the big question. And I think you could make the argument that they probably would have lost some viewers due to that sort of, audience going away, maybe momentarily, if you will. But I think the constant here is, or I guess the main theme here is that we've had 2 recent failures. So that's definitely going to bring out the skeptics. That's number one. But going back to the days of the USFL in the 1980s, people forget something very quickly. They were offered before the XFL, or before the USFL rather, made the decision to move to the fall. And I believe it was 1986, or that was their plan to play in the fall. They played their last spring season. The network at the time, who they were partnered with, ABC and ESPN, had given them or promised them collectively $250 million if they would stay in the spring. That is a significant amount of money now. That was an even more significant amount of money back then in 1980 standards. So they very quickly got to a promising TV contract. Now, granted, the NFL did not have a stranglehold on all the networks back then, but I think we saw some success with the USFL that had they not moved into the fall and tried to compete with the NFL, they might still be around today. That's always been my theory and my position. And in terms of the XFL and the AAF, there were viewership numbers. There were millions of people watching that product. So to say that there's not an audience for spring football, I think I would dismiss that notion completely. Charlie Ebersol came out with the idea that, hey, look, there's 80 million or so football people that effectively go away right after the Super Bowl that would come back if you had a football product. And all they're trying to tap into is a small percentage of that people, of that crowd. And they did it, and the XFL did it. So I think that Fox, that's what got Fox interested in our property. They had seen us when we did some rules testing for the XFL. So I didn't reach out to them. It was the CEO reached out to me directly and said, look, we've seen your product. It's just as good as the AAF XFL, if not better. And we like what you're doing from a business. So let's partner together. Let's help you grow this. So that was kind of their approach. And so I think, look, I think we absolutely have an opportunity to be successful. But I think we just have to be mindful, and you have to be very disciplined with your business approach. But absolutely, the numbers and the TV ratings don't lie. There is an audience of people out there, or there is a crowd, so to speak, that is absolutely entertained with spring football. But it has to be done the right way, and I think you have to be disciplined in your approach, at least from the onset.
And for perspective, if you take $250 million back in those days, that's adjusted for inflation. That's about $600 million now. That's crazy.
That's considerable. Yeah. I mean, you can run a league off of that. You can make money off of that. And so that was, again, the one thing I will say, the other point to that, of course, is that the difference between the USFL and the XFL and AAF of modern days is that the USFL went after the best talent. And as a matter of fact, they secured players before the NFL could sign them. So that's what made the USFL, in my mind, so successful so quickly. And that is also an instance, and it's very rare, but you'd have to go back to the 1960s with the AFL when sorry, but I'm drawing a blank here. I can't think. Lamar Hunt. Lamar Hunt tried to buy an NFL franchise. They refused his membership. So literally on an airplane, he drew on the back of a napkin, drew a business plan. I'm going to go out and I'm going to get this guy. I'm going to get that guy. I'm going to go into markets where the NFL is not currently at, and there's population. And I'm going to find guys, and we're going to form our own league. And Lamar Hunt got TV money from the beginning, somewhere between $10 and $15 million, which again, in inflation is probably worth $100 million today. Okay. So they got TV money from the get-go. The USFL got TV money from the get-go, but the difference is both of those leagues went after the very best talent they could get their hands on at that time. And I've got my own theories on if somebody wanted to compete with the NFL tomorrow, what would you do? I've got plenty of theories on how that can be done because, quite frankly, the average NFL career is over with in a little over 3 years, okay? So it doesn't take a genius to figure out where you need to go to get players before the NFL can get them. Not to mention that the wear and tear that a player has to incur with a lengthy college career these days, just not something guys are interested in anymore. And the stuff out there about CTE and all these other possibilities of long-term health conditions that they might experience with a long career, same thing as a pitcher that, you know, you're going to covet an arm that hasn't thrown as many pitches over a career versus a guy that has thrown a lot, right? So, you know, again, that's just an additional point, but I strongly believe that there's a audience for spring football, but it has to be either a disciplined approach from a business standpoint, or you need to go out there and you need to get the very best talent, and you need to find a TV partner that's willing to buy in from the get-go, because nobody could deny if you went out there right now and started signing the top sophomores and juniors, not seniors, but the top sophomores and juniors, or even rising redshirt freshmen right out of college, and they're giving the Pac-12 $250 million a year and the SEC $400 million a year. You can't tell me that product would not generate TV interest, because it would. So I've got a lot of theories on how it can be done, but the bottom line is I do think there is a market for spring football, and we're slowly but surely trying to tap back into that or bring some of those viewers back.
While we have you on here, and this might be a oddball question, we're talking the CFL merger, XFL, and all that stuff. Am I missing? Years ago, did you try to get involved with the CFL and business wise? I think that there had been some talks about it. I know that XFL reporters have talked to me about that. Is that accurate? Am I remembering that right? And whether or not, what do you think about everything going on?
Yeah, a couple of things. One, yes. So last summer when the CFL seemed to be flailing and trying to find a way to play, my theory was, okay, this is a very simple problem to solve. The majority of your coaches and the majority of your players that make your product all reside here in the United States. And with the restrictions at the time, air travel, border issues with Canada and the United States, they had shut it down effectively. My position, I reached out to Randy Ambrosi, and obviously some reporters jumped right on it. And I basically said, look, why don't you partner with us? Let's play some games down south. You can satisfy your TV contract. We don't even need to play against one another, but you can utilize our facilities. You can utilize our league to draw players from. You can play CFL rules. Obviously, we'll have to modify some fields, but I had submitted a proposal to him so that they could play a 2020 season. And at the initial response was that, you know, he was very busy looking at other things and trying to find ways that they could play up in Canada. But I told him I had a way forward that would obviously require them to operate in the United States. And I also informed him that, look, if you can't have fans in the stands this year and you're simply playing to satisfy your TV contract, I can show you some ways down here to cut or mitigate some of your losses. But more importantly, you can satisfy your TV contract. And I don't think it really matters where you're playing with the CFL if, in fact, you can't have fans in attendance anyway. So there seemed to be some initial interest, but it never went anywhere. So that's the first part of your question. As it relates to the CFL-XFL merger, you know, quite frankly, I don't really know where to start on that. I mean, what I would tell you is it's kind of interesting to me because this is how I look at it from a logical perspective. You have a very established football league that's been around for, you know, basically at least playing the rules that we know today as CFL football over 50 years. They have a brand that is specific to their country. And I think that's what makes it unique. And I think that's why there's a fan base there, because it's Canadian rules and it's You still have to have half the players on the roster that are Canadian nationals, so to speak. But the idea that a league that's established like the CFL, I believe a couple of things are at risk here. One, merging with a league that, let's call it for what it is. I mean, at the end of the day, Vince McMahon's XFL is long gone. That no longer exists. What exists right now are effectively trademarks and used football equipment. That's what exists right now. So the idea that we're going to partner with you because you're known for innovation, you're known for this, you're known for that. They're known for starting seasons at two different times. Both seasons were over with in short form, but the Vince McMahon XFL is no longer here. This is going to be a different XFL. I'm not even sure that they know exactly what it is that they're creating or what it is they're trying to do. So I just find it interesting that a entity like the CFL that's very established, that is on the verge of disaster, their best business move is to reach out to an entity that just emerged from bankruptcy. So I don't, again, I know some people think that it could be a winning formula. I'm not one of those. I think that it just creates, more issues logistically. So I don't know. I mean, I've heard from some individuals that are very close to the discussions that these are absolutely serious talks, but that's it. I don't know if there's actually a way forward where these leagues effectively merge. I can see where they work together in terms of player contracts, but at the end of the day, I like to see ourselves right now as the premier professional football development league. That's where we see ourselves. So we're focused on our brand of football, building what we're doing. And to me, it would make a lot more sense if the XFL was having a conversation with us like Oliver Luck did a couple of years ago. And it made sense for us to work together at that time to test rules, to help develop players for them. It would make a lot more sense for a US-based partnership maybe than what's being talked about right now. But regardless, we're focused on what we're doing, and we've got an exciting future ahead.
We had two quick questions before we let you go. I don't want to drag this on too long. The new rules that you guys are implementing, the quarterback protections, and then the overtime seems a little bit more straightforward. What does that mean when you guys are going to have extra protections for the quarterback?
I think right now what we're doing is looking at a series of rules just to make gameplay a little safer for the quarterback. I mean, look, at the end of the day, with the spring league, I feel like that where we serve the NFL best is trying to develop offensive linemen and, most importantly, developing quarterbacks through live game repetition, something that a practice squad in the NFL, falls short of. So we have to find ways to make sure that when we get these, the agents that reach out to us to have the high-profile quarterbacks, we need to make sure that these guys are coming in and they're going to be protected, or at least as much as we can protect them without affecting the integrity of our game. So I can't tell you all of the different possibilities we're looking at right now, but everything from as simple as, what they do at the Senior Bowl. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Senior Bowl every year, they just eliminate intentional grounding. So there's no intentional grounding at the Senior Bowl. And that makes the quarterback, you could be 30 yards behind the line of scrimmage, and all of a sudden if the 6'5", 260-pound DN is breathing down his neck, he can just throw the ball into the ground. He doesn't have to worry about getting across the line of scrimmage, finding an eligible receiver in the area. So that's something that makes quarterbacks, because you're not talking about a quarterback just back there handing the ball off. You're talking about that quarterback in specific passing situations. So it could be something as simple as that with a slight modification to that rule, or some other things that we're discussing. But that's at least an example. We're just trying to find something that will offer further protection for the quarterback right now. We've got a couple of different ideas.
Last question for you before we let you go today. We might try to ping you again here during the season with everything going on. Obviously, you have to be aware of fan control football and all that going on. General just thoughts about that. And then also there had been some criticism, because we cover that league as well, with some of their owners calling out, basically saying like, hey, you know, we pay our players, albeit not very much. Their salaries are not very much per game. But we're, you know, some of the players here, and I know it's if you have 3 years of NFL, you know, the development fee is waived. Otherwise, it's a $2,000 development fee. I really wanted to get your reactions to that, because they were very harsh on that when you guys announced the tryouts earlier this season, and we obviously defended that and the benefits that come with the spring league. But I did want to hear your take.
Yeah, look, I mean, the first and foremost, I know the owner of Fan Control Football League. Him and I've known him since I believe 2015. And he's a great guy. I think he's got a very unique concept. I think he's onto something to some extent. But by the same token, I don't consider what they do 11-on-11 outdoor football. And that's no knock to what they're doing. I think they have a unique audience, and I think they're doing something different. And so I think they've built some buzz. Their viewership numbers, I don't know what to speak of in terms of viewership numbers. I know that there were numbers they released, but I believe the actual consistent viewer, like how many people were actually tuned in at any given time, probably didn't exceed 30 or 40,000 people is my guess. I believe that collectively they had a lot of people coming in and coming out. But again, I don't view their league, first of all, as legitimate competition to what we're doing. And two, if they want to line up and play against us, we're more than willing to take them on. I will tell you that last year, I've got a lot of guys in my league that are former CFL head coaches. Marcel Belfay, who's an assistant for the Generals, Bart Andrus, these two are both former head coaches in the CFL. So they know what's up there. And I've got position coaches with different teams throughout the league that have coached in the CFL. And so we got toward the end of the season last year. And I mean, hands down, Mike Singletary, all these guys said, look, we know, Brian, there's 2 or 3 teams in this league right now that can go up to Canada and beat any team up there. And I would put money on that. Okay. So our product, I can say this with great certainty, and I could care less who's paying and who's not paying. Yeah, we're charging or assessing a development fee to guys that have not been with an NFL team in the last 3 years. What that typically means is this guy comes out of college, he's never had an opportunity. He's never been in an NFL camp, yet he continues to come back to the spring league. Well, we're paying to obviously develop this player versus offering a service to some extent to a player that wants to remain active. The reason why we do this is because the probabilities for us is the likelihood of a guy who's never had an opportunity with an NFL team, the further he's removed from college, that chance becomes lesser and lesser. The higher percentage of a player returning is a guy that we sign that has been with an NFL team within the last 3 years, been in a camp. You're going to see a lot of guys this year in our league that have active roster experience. You're going to see guys that just were on practice squads last year in the NFL. So it's going to be a good product. And I don't think that there shouldn't be any sort of effort to marginalize what we're doing simply because we held a couple of tryouts and players paid for those tryouts. Number one, those tryouts are not being run by the Spring League. They're being run by a company called ANC that ran the tryouts for the AAF and ran the tryouts for the XFL. We don't actually see a dime from those tryouts. That tryout money goes directly to ANC. I actually lose money because I have to pay former NFL scouts to be there to do all the evaluations for the Spring League. So we're not making any money off that. That's full transparency. Okay. But we are looking to try to find some street free agents, if you will, some guys that we feel like, we should certainly give consideration to. But, ultimately, look, we play outdoor 11-on-11 football, and, the fan controlled football league is something completely different than what we do. But if they ever want to line up in scrimmage, we'll be more than happy to play them. So they can.
And my money's on you. Yeah. My money's on you.
Yeah, 100%.
Right, exactly.
We're not trying to gas you up here, and we're definitely not going to marginalize you. We're not going to marginalize you like FCF has done to everybody. Everybody. So
that's okay. I love this. Listen, so Rob Ferruti is a friend of mine. He started that league, and I think he's got a great vision for what they're doing. And so, all kidding aside, I don't think anybody looks at their league and our league and says, oh, their talent's better than yours. I don't think it's anything like that. But what they're doing is completely different. It's not the outdoor football game. And it's also not what the USFL was or what the AAF was or what the XFL is. The real core football person wants to see coaches. They want to see players. They want to see integrity. I don't know how you could ever, if I was the owners or the people involved with that league, the one question I would always have is, one of the biggest spaces right now to get into with professional football is, in fact, the in-game wagering betting space. So if you're going to change your roster every couple of days and have linemen go from team A to team B to team C, I don't know how much integrity is in that league, and it's going to be crazy to set lines on games like that. So that's one part of the business model that's kind of has me for a loss.
Well, Sir Rob Ferretti is no friend of mine, so we do. I'm kidding.
Sorry to hear that. He's a good guy. I mean, I'm sorry to hear that.
No, I'm teasing. I'm being completely facetious. No, we've gone back and forth with the league, but it's been fun. Anyway, I don't want to hold up anyone's too much time today. I'm being facetious.
The other thing you got to remember, the biggest thing in this conversation is they don't have a team called the Jousters.
That's true.
That's one thing they do not have.
It's true.
So they don't have a team called the Jousters. The Glacier Boys can't hold a candle to the Jousters. Let's not kid ourselves. Yeah. Okay. So,
well, Brian Woods, we appreciate your time. Thanks for taking so much of your day out to talk to us about the spring league coming back. Looking forward to all of the teams, 8 teams now, 2 different cities. We'll be definitely tuning in.
Absolutely. Hey, you guys, listen, man. You guys are great. We need to do this more. Okay. I know Reed and you have been killing each other. You guys have been killing yourselves to make this podcast a winning deal. And, we should talk offline about this because I think there's some things that we could do to help support you guys this year.
I would love
and
that.
get you more involved in the mainstream. You just need to change it to maybe the TSL podcast versus the XFL Markcast.
Give me a Jousters jersey to broadcast with, and I'll be here every week. So
absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Brian.
All right, guys. We'll talk soon.
Thanks.
Want to thank Brian Woods for coming on, discussing all of the stuff with the Spring League. Glad to have him on a second time. Probably our first second-time guest that we've had. Maybe, yeah. First time we've had.
Josh Davis was on twice talking about Spring League.
I forgot about that.
Never forget about Josh. Josh doesn't listen to the podcast, but never forget about Josh.
Yeah. So I want to thank Brian for coming on and chatting about the Spring League for sure.
Yeah, I would encourage. I forgot. We might go on. We got to do our giveaway stuff real quick, too. We're going to hurry through this. Hurry up, offense, to get out of here. We just a couple of fan control football things. I am excited for Spring League. CFL fans, if you're not into the Spring League, a great football play. That's the one thing we like about it. It is issues they had last year with COVID and the bubble and things like that. The play on the field was phenomenal. We talked about it last week. Jordy had a tryout with the Gophers, the Minnesota Gophers. And he did really well. And it was really funny. So he did an interview with Fox News and they spoke with the Gophers head coach. And several team representatives at the tryout asked about Jordy when he was doing his tryout. Who the heck is this guy? Where did he come from? And I tweeted, I go, that speaks volumes to the millions of views that Fan Control Football had every week. The fact that these professional football scouts, that this is their job, is to professionally scout football players, did not know the main quarterback of the winning team of the Fan Control Football.
Yep. Well, I mean, the millions of views, I think we've kind of chalked up to, you open up the Twitch app and the featured video isn't a video game. It's probably the football game. So that's where I think the millions of views might have come from. But
yeah, was that James Larson that posted that? I don't know if we talked about that on the show. That was a great feedback. That when Fan Control Football is on, their game is the front page of Twitch. So anybody that goes to Twitch, that game's playing. So that is where we think those millions of views come from. Not and because that equates to the 3-minute watch time. Because if you have millions of people going on Twitch and seeing all this,
I don't want to watch this. I want to watch someone play Fortnite or something.
It's like when I look at our YouTube impressions, if we're on the front, like people's whatever, if they don't, we'll have like not a million, but we'll have like 30,000 impressions, but that doesn't mean that we got 30,000 views. That meant that we had, like 1,000 views off of that. Our favorite CEO of the Fan Control Football, So Rob, commented on the XFL-CFL news this week. He said, this won't work unless Combined Properties gets a massive media rights fee. Canadian teams only add to the cost with little update. 40 million people across Canada don't move the needles for U.S. broadcasters. I would be shocked if anything came of the XFL-CFL news. And I responded with my tweet. I said, wait a minute, who are you?
It's accurate.
FCF doesn't have a media deal. I don't want to talk about this. They're on Twitch, which is amazing. Until FCF has negotiated TV deals and worked across the United States and India, I don't want to hear Sarab's thoughts about this.
I would rather ask Brian's thoughts about this because Brian has negotiated media deal.
Yeah.
Sarab has not, ever. And I know that D's and all the guys are going to hear this probably and go, oh, they're hating again. Nope. No, we're being critical because you guys are hating. You guys are going out of your way to disparage the XFL, to disparage the CFL, to disparage any other football league. You are going out of your way to do that. So when we're being critical of what you're saying, we're not hating. We're just saying, okay, well, you guys are hating. We're telling you that you don't have a place to speak about media rights deals because guess what? Spoiler alert, you don't have one. You don't have one at all.
No. The comment was, wow, the XFL must really live rent-free in Sarab's head. The fact that he would go out of his way to comment on that, I thought was astounding.
Solid.
My Wild Aces jersey finally shipped. It's been almost 3 months, so that is coming. So hopefully we'll have that next week. So it's only been 3 months. They were stopping. You can't buy any of them as of today, April 9th, when this airs.
Aww.
For the first season. But anyway, my jersey is supposedly coming, and so we can finally shut up about that. Because I guess one listener in particular is really tired of me talking about it. So.
Well, I know who that listener is. It's Patrick Deese's burner, and we'll leave it at that.
Yeah. Do we want to do giveaway or break, or just go right into the giveaway?
Let's get the giveaway done.
Yeah,
let's get the giveaway done, and let's wrap the show.
Yeah, we're hurry up offense. So this is how you're going to get into the big giveaway. Okay, Paul's got his Ocho Cinco, and then I'm going to show off the rest of our stuff here. These are the rules to enter the giveaway. You have to be subscribed to the channel. So whoever wins, I'm going to go in and verify all that stuff. If you've made it to this point, you're going to comment on the video. Has to be a video comment by Wednesday at noon Pacific. That is the cutoff. So whatever that is, the 14th at noon, you're going to comment and you're going to tell us what you want. We have the Ocho Cinco ball. We have the Taylor Heineke Ghetto Sideways logo jersey. So we have jersey, ball, and then I've got a bunch of hats. The jersey is a size medium. So if you're not a medium, don't do that one. And then I've got 5 hats of varying, like XFL Markcast. The stitching was all weird, but these are good hats. We're working on new hats. We have this one. They're all like reject hats. We have the Sideways logo one. I know Philip is wanting that one. And then we have this one that's like the front's melted off because they couldn't get the logo on. So we have the Ocho Cinco ball. That's the main prize. We have the Heineke jerseys, and then we have 5 hats. So you're going to comment, and you're going to say ball or like ball hat or ball hat jersey, whatever you want. And that is the only way you're going to be entered. I'm going to get all the people Wednesday at noon. I'm going to do a thing, and then we're going to draw the people on the show next week when we're not in hurry up offense here. So does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense to me.
Got to have a comment on the video. You need to have made it this far in the show, and God bless you all for watching.
Yep. So we'll see you next week for tuning in. And we'll be giving away all our prizes next week. So make sure you definitely tune in to see if you've won one of the prizes.
Yes. Comment on the video, and thank you. Give it a thumbs up too. That helps me out.
No, give a thumbs up too. We appreciate that. We appreciate your viewership again. XFLshow.com/YouTube to do that. XFLshow.com/merch to buy some merchandise. Why not? And we'll see y'all next week.
We have a new hat coming.
Yeah, that's right. I got to put that up. Thanks for reminding me. I'll do that right now.
Okay.